Hello everybody, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Please let me know in the comments where you guys are tuning in from, where you're based, where you're watching from, what galaxy, what dominion, what city, what county, what village, and we'll get started right away. So I see we've got a couple hundred people tune in. Guys, please let me remind you to hit the like button. I forgot to do, I've been forgetting to do that since we've moved to Rumble, but it is important. So please make sure you hit the like button, and if you don't have an account yet, please make sure that you make an account, because again, we need people to resubscribe on Rumble. For the foreseeable future, I'm still banned from doing any work on YouTube because they didn't just demonetize it, they deleted a lot of my coverage. They deleted October 7th from that specific day, the long live stream we did. And then in the days after that, so you know, it's targeted, and I can't do anything. So in any case, just reminding you, thank you. We got people tuning in from Virginia, from Nevada, from Geneva, from Cornwall, from Sweden, Texas, from North Carolina, Australia, New Zealand, from Florida, from Brooklyn. We've got people tuning in from India. We've got people tuning in from Phoenix, from Armenia. Southern Oregon. Lovely. And I see we've got some super chats as well. Thank you guys very much. We've got one here from give me a second. This is from Ayana. Says Richard is the man. Everyone follow me on Instagram at IanaB01. I'm private to avoid the trolls, but I post every day. And we've got another one. This is from, thank you. And we've got one from Ayana. Says, thank you, Richard, for the amazing Richard work. Is the man. Everyone follow me on Instagram at IanaB01. We have one from I'm private to avoid the trolls, but I post every day. Yemen, arguably the poorest nation in the region. This is from shame. Go on from Ayana. Says Richard for the amazing work. Richard is the man. Everyone follow me on Instagram at IanaB01. We have one from obviously I'm going to post every day. Yemen, arguably the poorest nation in the region. Sharks. Thank you, shame. Go on from Ayana. Says Richard for the amazing work. Everyone follow me on Instagram at IanaB01. We have one from obviously Yemen, arguably the poorest nation in the region. Sharks. Thank you, shame. Go on from Ayana. Says Richard for the amazing work. Please join Instagram at IanaB01. We have one from obviously Yemen, arguably the poorest nation in the region. Sharks. Thank you, shame. Go on from Ayana. Says Richard for the amazing work. Please join Instagram at IanaB01. We have one from obviously Yeah, you guys are saying this echo. I know. I could hear it. Let me just show you this clip over here. Okay, so this is the Israeli ambassador. Okay, and she's giving an interview just a few days ago, right? So let's take a look. You guys see that? So once again, this is the Israeli ambassador to the UK. She's talking to Sky News. She's giving an interview, and listen to what she says.
Two-state solution?
Is there
still a chance for a two-state solution?
I think it's about time for the world to realize the Oslo paradigm failed on the 7th of October, and we need to build a new one. And in order to build a new one...
Does that new one include the Palestinians living in a state of their own? Is that what it includes?
I think the biggest question is, what type of Palestinians are on the other side? This is what Israel realized on the 7th of October. The answer is absolutely no, and I'll tell you why.
Well, then how can there be peace? How can there be peace in
the reason there is no peace
Israel
is because the Palestinians...
without offering a state to Palestine, how can there be peace in Israel?
Israel knows today, and the world should know now, the reason...
She's like, Mark, don't make me say your first name. We have dirt on you.
The Oslo Accords failed is because the Palestinians never wanted to have a state next to Israel. They want to have a state from the river to the sea.
So the two-state solution is dead?
Why are you obsessed with a formula that never worked, that created these radical people in the other side? Why are you obsessed with that?
Wow. So it's just a minute long, but there's a lot to unpack. So she says, why are you obsessed? Well, it's not a question of being obsessed or not. You signed this agreement. You signed it and you violated it. So it's not, you know, whether the news presenter likes it or not. Israel signed this. So did Palestine. And I'll remind you that the Palestinians signed this, and it's probably the worst thing that, well, there are a lot of bad things about the occupation, but it's really, really bad. I mean, I'm not going to go too much into the details about the zones because I've talked about that a million times, but I want to remind you that the premise was that the PLO will renounce armed resistance, or as the Israelis say, violence, and they will recognize Israel. So Palestine will recognize Israel, and then in exchange, the Israelis would hand over some of the territory in the West Bank to be co-policed, with the PA, and then you had Zone A, B, and C, which is a giant salad. So they cut Palestine, they shredded it. It's like they shredded it into tiny pieces, right? And the deal was that within 5 years of signing that, so that's 93, within 5 years, a Palestinian state would emerge, and the Israelis, they have to assist this process and help the Palestinians to have their own state and not stand in the way. Well, there is no Palestinian state. There are many countries that have ties with Palestine and recognize Palestine, but the way that it was envisaged, the Israelis violated the accord. So now that you see what the strategy was. The strategy was at the time is that, the PLO, what they're doing, armed struggle, like Hamas is doing today, is effective. It works. So let's make them, let's basically neuter them. Let's clip their wings. Let's stop them taking up armed struggle. We'll make them, we'll pacify them. And that way we can keep stealing land without anybody bothering us. And that's what happened. And part of the reason why you had October 7th is precisely because of this, because there is no respect for the Palestinians. There is no respect for Israel's own word, right? They signed this agreement and then they violate it. And, of course it's dead. She the only thing that she is correct in saying is that the Oslo Accords are dead. Yes, I mean, thank you very much. We don't need this tow rag to go on Sky News to tell us that. We know. And Netanyahu says the same thing. But I just want to remind you that this goes both ways. This goes both ways. So when she's saying that, no, the Oslo Accords are dead, there's no two-state solution, okay? Well, I mean, you're putting Palestinians in a corner. You're basically telling them, you know what, we're just going to kill you because we don't want you to have a state. There's no Palestinian state. So, you can't live under Israel because it's apartheid, and you can't have your own state. You have to be killed. This is what she's saying. It's not that she's saying it. They're doing it. They have been doing it. They are still doing it. And so you don't really leave Palestinians any choice. And it's ironic because she is acting, she said this thing that, Palestinians don't want to live side by side with Israel. No one asked you that. This is not what the Oslo Accords, what they outlined in the end. They stipulated that there have to be two states, and you violated that, and you violated the partition plan. So that we have multiple steps of, multiple violations. She says that Palestinians don't want to live next to Israelis. This is a lie. Once again, Palestine signed the Oslo Accords. They recognized Israel. How can you say that they don't want to live next to Israel? Look, just by signing the Oslo Accords, the Palestinians gave away half their land. They gave away half the land. So it's not enough that Israel takes half the land. It's not enough that they're building even more settlements. It's not enough that they're killing the Palestinians. It's not enough that they take away the state. It's just like, it's never ending with them. It's never ending with the Israelis. And, she acts like, they want to erase Israel off the map. You erase Palestine off the map. Israel already did this to Palestine. Remember, everything that Israel says is something that it has done itself. This is always the case. Pick any sentence you like, pick any accusation, and I guarantee you this is something they have done. I will prove it to you. And so when she says that, Palestinians want to erase Israel off the map, Israel did that to the Palestinians. Remember, Israelis are from Eastern Europe. They're all Eastern European. And let's say that some of them are Semitic, which is logical because it's in the Middle East. Obviously, some of them are going to be Semitic because they were either, they were forced into moving there like Israel did to the Arab Jews, or they're Palestinians and they happen to get the Israeli citizenship, which is a tiny minority. But at the end of the day, they're all Eastern Europeans. Okay, Netanyahu is from Ukraine, Poland. Every prime minister before him, they are every single one without exception. Every single Israeli prime minister without exception comes from Eastern Europe. They're not from the Middle East, so they have the possibility to go back to their countries. As a matter of fact, that is the only peaceful alternative. Palestinians, number one, don't have anywhere to go, and even if they did, they shouldn't go, because if they go, they're not going to get their land back. Exhibit A, you can look at the Palestinians in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and so on. Never getting their land back, at least the way things are now, right? So, I mean, even the ones in Palestine that were internally displaced also not getting their land back. Just like the people in Gaza. Most people in Gaza come from other places in Palestine. So, you know, she's a very vindictive person. I know she's very disliked. Everywhere she goes, they protest her. When she goes to, you know, she tries to speak at universities. I remember I looked at that with you guys a few years ago. But this is from, this is just 2 days ago outside her house.
Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry. We will never let you die. Free, free. Palestine. Free, free. Palestine. Free, free. Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine.
What do we want?
Ceasefire.
When do we want it?
Now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Occupation no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is a terrorist state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Occupation no more.
Thank you, madam.
Israel is a terrorist state.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
What do we want?
Ceasefire.
When do we want it? What do we want?
Ceasefire.
When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
Change ceasefire to intifada. No, but the thing is that she is very vindictive, and every single thing that she comes out of her mouth is a lie. She's not, you know, she's not different from other Israeli politicians, but yeah, you know, really a character, truly a character. And once again, this idea that Palestinians, they want to erase Israel off the map, it's an admission of what Israel has done to Palestinians. Truly, right? Truly, literally, in every sense of the word. Figuratively, literally, physically, they have done it to the Palestinians. You try to buy an atlas or a map, you know, manufactured in the West. Palestine, you might find it written in tiny, but it's going to have Israel slapped on top of it. And you remember with Google Maps and Apple, they were playing games and removing Palestine and turning it into Israel. So they have literally erased it off the map, or are trying to. But Palestinians, they're very resilient and they're not going anywhere. But again, you know, just always remember this. The Palestinians recognized Israel in 1993. It's 30 years later now. We're in 2023. What did the Palestinians get? They have no state. There are more illegal settlements on their land. There are more Palestinians killed. I mean, this year was the deadliest year on record for Palestinians in decades, right? And now with Gaza, I mean, if you add up all these wars and you add up what's happening in Jenin and you add up in Nablus, these raids that are happening all the time, you know, how is that peace? It's the Israelis that don't want to live side by side with the Palestinians, and they have been intent from the beginning on erasing them. And this is the truth. You know. Let me show you something else. So let's talk about Al Jazeera. What happened to them? Give me a second to pull this up. You guys should be able to see it in a second. Okay. Right. So Israel managed to kill more journalists. Okay. They were bombing a school in Khan Yunis in Gaza, and they injured Wa'il Dahdour, who was the guy on the right, and they killed his co-worker, his colleague, Sami Abu Daqqa. So I mean, it's really horrific, because the way this story happened is they bombed the school, which is the first crime. They injured the journalists, and then they blocked the medics from reaching. They blocked them from reaching Sami. Here's they had their funerals afterwards. These are the medical workers, right? So I mean, they could have saved him, maybe. We don't know. But this is a common Israeli practice where, they stop the ambulance at the checkpoint, or they might give the ambulance permission to go and then they shoot at it, or then they make it turn back. It's like playing games all the time, right? Here's Wa'ed saying goodbye to his Al Jazeera colleague. So again, the one who's killed is on the left, Samer Abu Laqqa. Here's the funeral procession.
اصبر يا راجل وحد الله وحد الله هيك ما حدش بديش ولا صوت يا احمد وحد الله يا جماعه الخير يا شباب انا شايف شويه انا الله يرحمه ربنا طلب الرحمه رحمه الله عليه وحد الله يا ابويا الله يخليك رجع راسك رجع خليه يصور يا طيب من هنا وانا جاي اوصل لعندك.
Samir was working as his cameraman, and remember just 2-3 weeks ago they did the same thing in South Lebanon. The Israelis they bombed 2 Al Mayadeen journalists, right, and killed them. Rabia was the cameraman, and I think Farah was her name, the anchor. Sorry, her name escapes me right now. But the same thing. And in South Lebanon, I mean, you can't even compare it to Gaza. It's still a war zone, but right now it's like they were standing in the middle of a field. There's nothing there. It's targeted. So the Israelis are going and killing them on purpose. And they did the same thing with the Reuters journalists at the beginning of the war. And now the total, it's above 90 journalists that they've killed, right? And if you look at his colleague here, right, Wa'ed, I mean, he was injured now when Samir was killed, but last month they actually killed Wa'ed's son, daughter, grandson, and wife, right? So the guy on the right. So what people in Gaza are doing is they're spreading their children out in different houses. Like they'll leave some at this relative's house or some at this place, because they are afraid that if the house is bombed, the whole family will be wiped out, which has happened dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times since October 7th. This is a thing, right? This is an actual thing where the Israelis are wiping out entire families. I don't even know what the figure is now because it keeps changing, but it's at least 55, and that was already in the first 2 weeks of the war. So you can imagine what it is now. So people are spreading their kids out. That's what he did, and so he still has, I think, some more relatives alive, some other children, but they killed his wife, 2 children, daughter and son, and then grandson, and now he has his cameraman, his colleague, killed. So and he himself is wounded. So this is a very dangerous job. It's a very, very when you put on that vest and it says press, it's like you're painting a target on yourself, because for the Israelis, normal people, when they see a red cross or a red crescent, or they see press or they see UN, they know, okay, this is a neutral person. I'm not supposed to touch them or target them or cause them harm. They have nothing to do with the battle. But with the Israelis, when they see press, this is, on the contrary, this is like, you're waving red in front of a bull. Israel hates journalists. And once again, I mean, the Committee for the Protection of Journalists, the CPJ, I think they only started counting casualties 30 years ago. And since they began counting casualties, more journalists have been killed by Israel since October 7th than any war in 30 years. Just think about how sick that is. So they are targeted without question. It's targeted. And Blinken, I'll remind you, he went to Qatar. He was meeting with all these Arab leaders, and he told Qatar to tone down the coverage on Gaza because Al Jazeera is based in Qatar, right? So they weren't too happy about the coverage. I mean, Al Jazeera, again, depending on whether we're talking about English Al Jazeera or Arabic Al Jazeera, and whether we're talking about Syria or Palestine, different coverage, right? But they have been very good on this issue, on Gaza, without question. And you can see that their staff and their journalists are paying a very, very heavy price for that. So, yeah. This is when they handed over his equipment.
هذا جوال اخونا سامي هذا فوز سامي جبناه وجبنا الجلب وهاي المايك هاي المايك هذا اللي وجدناه في مكان خلاص سلم عليك بارك الله فيك تمام سلمتوه سلمنا جميعا بارك الله
فيك لقيتوا الطريق مفتوح لما رحتوا ولا ما لقيتوهاش؟
جابوا كباش
غاليين ما عندكم.
I'll show you there's another journalist who was killed, not from Al Jazeera. Haneen was her name. She was killed alongside her family. Okay, and this was when Israel bombed Al Sirat refugee camp in Gaza, right? And that's her, right? So she was, as I said, the 90th journalist to be killed in Gaza. And this happened the same day as Samir Abu Daqqa. So again, it's like a daily occurrence, you know. And one thing that I resent is the fact that, you know, when someone from CNN or whatever goes into Gaza, if they even go, you know, it's like they're heralded and stuff. And yes, it's very good that they talk about what's happening. The problem is they only do it for 1 minute. And then the other journalists who are literally, they have no choice but to be in Gaza because they're from Gaza, they're stuck in Gaza, they're risking their lives. They don't get as much credit. They need to get more credit because, again, it's a very deadly, deadly job. So let's talk about what the resistance are doing. I've got some very, very good clips for you, and this is really interesting stuff. So we're going to talk about the tactics and, you know, how the Israelis are doing. Trust me, they don't seem to be faring too well. So I'm going to show you these new videos that have been released by Hamas, by Qassam Brigades, and PIJ. This is, once again, the most, I mean, truly, the most extraordinary combat footage and combat journalism in decades, without question. And it's very important because it shows you that the narrative Israel is painting about this war is very wrong. Okay, I'm going to show you yesterday's clip, and I want you to watch. It's really incredible. I'll go into the details. You know, I'll pause and comment as we go along. You can see there's just direct hit after direct hit. You know, Hamas are releasing these videos almost on a daily basis. So this one is from yesterday, right? From the 18th of December. Now this part is incredible. Look how many Israeli soldiers. I mean, they made mehshi out of those guys. You know, these are 10 taken out just yesterday on the 18th. And they really lead me to doubt Israel's figures, because Israel say they've lost 100 troops, roughly 130 troops since the start of the war. Again, so now it's a little over 2 months, right? 7 weeks, 8 weeks since the start of the war, or this episode rather. So that's 10 taken out right there. I'll let the rest of the clip play, and then I'll get back to my point. So this video, I think it was filmed by an Israeli, right? You can see what's going on here is that these Z9 bulldozers that the Israelis love to use to crush people's homes, literally, they're pulling out all these, they're towing all these disabled tanks. I mean, just look at them. They're totaled, So they're taking all these tanks out so they can repair them. Every day, the Israelis, they go into Gaza. They get their asses handed to them. Hamas wipe the floor with them. Then they come back out. They fix their tanks. They try going back in, repeat, rinse, rinse and repeat. So they're not faring too well, right? Once again, keep this in mind. Israel have failed to attain a single military objective since October 7th. Not a single military objective. Now, I know for the Israelis, killing children is a military objective in their minds, but that doesn't count. Okay, those are crimes. When we talk about real military objectives, things that are challenging, that mean fighting other men, they have achieved nothing, literally nothing. Here's another video, which is equally extraordinary. This is also from yesterday, from the 18th of December. Take a look. So you can see here, there's a column of tanks, of armored vehicles, APCs, armored personnel carriers, Merkavas, and so on. And Hamas are about to fire a Cornet, okay? Not Cornetto, just Cornet. It's Russian. It's an ATGM. Okay, so an ATGM is an anti-tank guided missile. You can see it now. You'll see it spinning somewhere in a moment on the screen. There it is. So again, this is guided. It's not like an RPG where you just holster it on your shoulder and fire. This one it allows you to be a bit more precise. But yeah, those guys are toast. They're toast. Now, you might be wondering, why did they fire at the Jeep, right? Because obviously this is an ATGM. It's made for tanks, for armored vehicles. And it has, it's better suited for armor-piercing capabilities. The Jeep, blowing up a Jeep with an ATGM with a Cornet is a bit overkill, right? Now, from that distance, maybe not, because you want that thing to count, and this is a moving vehicle. So if you want to chase it, fine. But why did they go after the Jeep when they have a Cornet that is suitable for taking out tanks and APCs? Well, the thing is that the tanks were already a bit, the distance of the tanks, the trophy system might have been triggered, but that's not the main reason. Who is in the Jeep? When you have an armored column moving like this, who is in the Jeep? You have officers riding in the Jeep. The officers, they don't ride in the APC. If you've ever been in a tank or an APC, it's crammed. You're like this. You can barely move. It will protect you more than a Jeep, but it's uncomfortable and it's crappy. Officers do not ride in the APC or the tank if they can help it, right? They will get in the Jeep. So the high priority here, the higher priority is to take out the officers, because when you take out the officers, the NCOs and the enlisted men, they don't know what to do. Okay, you leave them confused, you leave them leaderless. Officers are always a higher priority target in any army, in any combat scenario, because they are the ones who know what they're doing, sort of. Not in this case. But that's why they took out the Jeep, okay? Now, I'll come back to officers in a second and how Israelis approach combat, but just look at this. Look at the rest of the clip. So if we look at the amount of Israelis killed and their names and ranks specifically, okay, because the Israelis announce them sometimes. Let me show you something, because just last week, so that was December the 12th, okay, the Israelis published on their Twitter account, on the IDF Twitter account, they published this post and they listed the names of people killed. Now, let me read these names to you, or their ranks rather. So that's Lieutenant Colonel. We've got a major, a sergeant, staff sergeant, a captain, a major, and a master sergeant. So, the way that this works with the Israelis is that, when you do your compulsory military service, which again is a thing, and that's why the Israelis, the men and the women, they all have to go into the army, and then they turn around and claim they're civilians. You can't be in the army and a civilian at the same time. These are direct contradictions. in any case, when you finish that when you finish compulsory military service, it's not like in some countries where you just go back to civilian life. In Israel, you stay in the army as a reservist. You start with so non-commissioned officers rank, so as sergeant or staff sergeant, right? You stay in the reserves in the army, and you begin your career or your path as a reservist with that rank. So that's the reason why you don't see any lower ranks here. That's why the lowest rank you see is sergeant, right? These guys are probably reservists, okay? Now, Golani Brigade, this is what makes this very interesting, because the Golani Brigade is supposed to be the elite unit of the Israelis. And what Hamas did is they ambushed these 10 guys from Israel's elite Golani Brigade and took them out in one fell swoop. And you have a lieutenant colonel in there. You have a major, another major. You have a captain. You have another major. These are officers. The majority of the names on this list are officers, right? 6 officers and 4 NCOs. So if this is Israel's best brigade, and Hamas took out 6 officers in one go, especially a lieutenant colonel. I mean, Jesus, I think that's the highest rank, the highest ranked casualty that the Israelis have incurred thus far, right? So if they're doing this kind of damage, do you really believe that Israel have only suffered 130 casualties? I have such a tough time believing that, because it's been 8 weeks now. They lost 10 men in that video I showed you just yesterday. Just last week, they lost another 10 men. And these are just the ones that we know about. We know about them because this one Israel published, and the other one is a video that Hamas published. So, I'm counting them for you. But I don't believe the Israelis when they say 130. I think they're lying. And I'll tell you why. Not only do these figures not make sense, but also in Israel, you have a military censor, which is a British law. So you have something called the emergency defense regulations, right? So these were put in place by the British mandate in Palestine, and the whole point of that was to crush an Arab revolt, right, against colonialism. So one of those things included in the emergency defense regulations is a military censor, meaning the army can just gag the press. And this happened because last week, this Israeli paper, they published the real number of wounded. And it was 5,000 wounded Israelis. And then suddenly they had to fix the number, right? And they lowered it to 2,000, less than half. Again, I make typos like everybody else. The 2 is not near the 5. And I can't believe that passed through an editor by mistake. What likely happened here is that the army got mad and they made them change the number because they're not allowed to publish it. So Israel has kept these British laws in place. Another one is like keeping someone's dead body. A lot of Palestinian families lose family members that they're killed, and Israel refuses to release their bodies, which is another form of psychological torment. And another thing is also, of course, the administrative detention, arresting someone without charge or trial. These are all from the emergency defense regulations. They're literally colonial British laws, nothing else. And the Israelis keep them in place and practice them day to day, right, on a daily basis. So Israel is basically gagging the press from revealing the true number of dead. So you also just, in terms of proportion, you can't have 5,000 wounded and then only 130 killed. What is that? There's something odd. There's something stinky here. And once again, just from the physical evidence, from the stuff that is present from the daily videos where you see them taking out tanks, taking out APCs. Again, not all of them are going to be, are going to blow everybody up inside and, ignite the ammunition. But still, it's too many. It's too many to say it's just 130. There's something wrong with their figures. Let me show you the latest clip. This is released from PIJ, from Sarai al-Quds today.
الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر رميت ولكن الله رمى الله أكبر.
Those helicopters here, they're taking away the wounded, right? They're picking up the wounded Israelis and then towing them out, just like the tanks. Yep. So that's the latest one. There's another from, this is from Hamas, okay? I mean, this one is mad. So you can see that's a bulldozer, right? And without question, the only response that you can give an Israeli bulldozer is an RPG. But the fact that this guy fired it in this narrow alley, you're asking for trouble, man. He's probably gone deaf by now. And the shrapnel, God, I mean, that was really, that is really too close for comfort. That is too narrow. Anyway, that's one of the videos they released. And here's another one.
يا رب سدد يا رب الله أكبر.
Yeah, forgive me. I kept saying Z9s. They're D9s, just because there's a Z and a D in the word bulldozer. Yeah, the model is a D9, not a Z9. In any case, it doesn't matter. They're the same bulldozers that the Israelis use to tow the tanks and to come in. And they do this in Jenin as well. They go into Jenin and they crush the roads. They as you know, they crush people's homes. You know, it's astonishing. It's astonishing. You know how evil they are. It's really, you know. There's also there's also a story about people getting bulldozed literally the other day in front of the hospital. I'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to show you this combat footage because the Israelis are suffering large casualties and they're lying about it. They're incurring great losses, and you know, when they say 130, I just don't buy that. I just don't buy it. This doesn't add up. And once again, you have to take into account that the Israelis, the way they fight is that they send in the officers first, and then behind them the NCOs and enlisted men. Now, that doesn't change the fact that officers are more important. On the contrary, it shows you even more why the officers are important for the Israelis, because the officers are leading the charge, essentially, right? So when Hamas are targeting those officers and PIJ are targeting those officers, they're doing their job, because this is guerrilla warfare that the Israelis are unable to contend with. And remember also that a high proportion of the Israelis being killed are not reservists, right? Who you would assume maybe are not as, you know, sharp as active duty. No, on the contrary, it's about halfway, right? So you have too many, so to speak, too many for the Israelis, too many active duties that are being killed. Because the active duty troops are supposed to be sharper, they're supposed to be better trained, because this is their life, right? They don't do anything except the military. And again, I know that's saying something in Israel, given that everyone is in the military, but you understand these people are career officers, and so the proportion of these active duty troops being killed is very, very high. It's not just reservists who got off got out of their house and then got called in or something like that. Just understand this point. And the fact that as I said, they're taking out the officers, it means they're doing their job right. 100 years from now, you're going to have people that are teaching and learning Hamas guerrilla tactics in military schools, in military academies, without question. Yes, some of these things are not new, right? But even the tunnels, they're not new. The Viet Cong had tunnels, the Japanese had tunnels, fine. But the scale of the tunnels, the way the tunnels are constructed, all of these things, they are unprecedented. And just today, this Israeli paper, I keep shortening it, it's Ynet, that's their URL. They were saying if Hamas have these tunnels, what does Hezbollah have, right? Because up until now, it's really only Hezbollah that was feared greatly in Israel, and this is because they got basically Lebanon wiped the floor with them in 2006, and in 2000, and Hezbollah kicked Israel out of Lebanon, and they didn't understand that Hamas is just as just as sharp, just as proficient as Hezbollah. And they didn't think that Hamas had the infrastructure and the weaponry and the technical proficiency and the military training and exercise to actually get these kinds of objectives done. But they do. So this is a very good question. If Hamas have this kind of infrastructure, what does Hezbollah have? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. In 2006, I remember one of the big features of that war, one of the big surprises was it was indeed the tunnels, right? Because you had Hezbollah fighters just popping out of the ground. It was like something out of a movie, right? Guys going to jump out of the water and grab you, except it's tunnels this time. I'm not exaggerating. And the Israelis, they really feared this stuff. So, if we look at the two battles that are taking place in Gaza right now, you have two battles. You have one battle that is a military battle, that is an actual military battle. And this is when you have the Israelis fighting against Al-Qassam brigades. And then you have the second battle, which is not a military battle, it's a massacre. And this battle is between, or rather, the IDF against civilians, right? It's the Israeli Navy putting up a blockade, a siege, besieging Gazans, and it's the Israeli Air Force bombing a defenseless civilian population that has no anti-aircraft. So these are the two battles going on. And either way, whichever way you look at it, the Israelis are either cowards, or rather, the Israelis are rather losing or cowards, respectively, right? So when it comes to fighting Al-Qassam brigades man-to-man, they are losing. And when it comes to bombing civilians, they're cowards. And their objectives thus far, they haven't attained or achieved a single one. Always keep that in mind. The only way you measure an army is whether it's able, measure its greatness is whether it can complete objectives. Doesn't matter how it does it. Can it achieve those objectives? Israel's objectives, besides murdering journalists and UN and civilians, were what? To destroy Hamas, destroy Hamas infrastructure. And they haven't been able to do a single one of those things thus far. So let me show you some more here. Yeah, take a look at this. So I already told you that Israel killed Samir Abu Daqqa and Haneen. They killed her. So those are the latest casualties, latest journalists that have been killed. But it's not only them that they've been trying to kill. If you look here, there's Mohammed Balusha. He's the journalist who broke the story about the babies that were left in the hospital to die in Gaza, right? So I did a segment on that. This was about 2-3 weeks ago. And he works for Mashhad. So they shot him in the leg, and he filmed it.
صوبت في رجلي إصابة من قبل قناص إسرائيلي. إصابة ما بعرف شو وضعها.
You can hear the drones hovering overhead. And here is so just one last word on this story that he broke. I think it was in Nisr hospital, and what the Israelis had done is they forced parents to leave without their children, and these were newborn babies, so they were still in incubators or in the hospital beds. And he's the one who went in the hospital and he filmed it, and he also talked to people. He recorded their eyewitness accounts where they were saying that the Israelis came in, they forced people to leave, they forced the medics and the doctors to leave the hospital, and they wouldn't allow anyone to take these children. So the children were, basically you had these decomposing bodies of dead babies in the hospital, just like on every bed, and he's the one who filmed it. So I don't know if they actually knew who they were shooting at. I think as they just saw press on him and fired at him. But, that's the thing with Gaza. It could be either one. Maybe it's targeted or it's not, because since they just fire so indiscriminately. I want to show you this. Clip. This is from the West Bank, and they were harassing. So this is an international journalist, I think from Spain, and they were harassing him and kicked him.
Çekti, silahın ucuyla vurdu. Çekti, silahın ucuyla vurdu. Muhtemelen, evet. Müdahaleler tam olarak böyle oluyor değerli izleyenler. Bakın, silahın tekini çekti. Vur beni dedi. Arkasını döndü gazeteci. Boğazını sıktı ve yere yatırdı. Görmüş olduğunuz gibi çok sert müdahaleler var. Çok sert müdahaleler var. Çok sert müdahaleler var. İşte gazeteci, Müslüman, sivil ayırt etmeksizin buna benzer silahın ucuyla çok sert vurdu. Halil geri çek. Halil geri gel. Halil geri gel. Gel Halil. Okay, calm down. Okay. Şu an silahın tetiğini bile bize doğrultmaya başladı. Şu an sağlıkçılar geldi. Ne yazık ki çok üzülerek söylüyorum ki bir meslektaşımız çok ciddi bir şekilde yaralandı.
Yeah, they don't like journalists. Let me show you a clip. This is from the Palestinian ambassador to the UK.
Journalist, because Israel's big, I would like to say this has been a long-held Israeli policy of targeting journalists, because Israel's biggest enemy is the truth, and the agents of truth are journalists, and they have been doing it over the years and decades. Remember Shireen Abu Akleh, remember all of our journalists who have been assassinated by the occupation, and therefore this is a time when doctors come here to reject the targeting of hospitals, when journalists should come together to reject the targeting of journalists. I think Israel has come out this time clear that it is after every one of us, not only in Palestine, but worldwide. It is after the truth. It wants to commit its atrocities in the darkness. And today, everybody, like this demonstration, is saying, you commit your war crimes and crimes against humanity, but not in darkness. We shall reveal it. We shall follow and pursue every war criminal, and everyone should be served with justice. I would like to say this has been a long-held Israeli policy of...
Well said. Well said. That's good what he said, that journalists are agents of truth. It's especially problematic and all the more important when you're in the combat zone, right? So unfortunately, many of these journalists in Gaza, they don't want to be there. They have no choice but to be there and document this. Israel's trying to kill as many people as possible, as many journalists as possible, so the truth doesn't get out. And remember, there are regular disruptions to the internet service, because Israel controls everything in Gaza, not just the food, the water, but even the internet service, the cell phone towers, everything, right? So, I'm not surprised, and you shouldn't be surprised that they behave like this outside Gaza, because it's not just something in Gaza. When he mentioned Shireen Abu Akleh, for example, she was reporting in the West Bank, right? And this took place in the West Bank. So it's a blanket policy, right? This is a standard, normal, well, in Israeli terms, it's a normal policy to abuse journalists. And then remember, you have the military censor where you can gag the press as well. which is also lovely. So, you know, you should remember these things when you hear, you know, rubbish that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel isn't a democracy, period, at all. I want to show you something else. This is from the BBC. But actually, before I continue, you know, we were talking about the Israeli casualties before. There's something interesting I just wanted to show you here. Yeah, so this is the outlet that got censored by the Israelis, right? They made them change the figure of wounded, the figure of wounded Israelis from 5,000 to 2,000. And nevertheless, look what they reported. They basically said that 20%, so, you know, 1/5 of the Israeli casualties are friendly fire. Okay, so that means that 20% of the Israelis that are, you know, either that are being killed by, you know, when they're in Gaza, they're being killed by their own people, right? You have Israeli soldiers killing other Israeli soldiers. And they're saying that's 20% of the casualties. Now, I don't know how true that figure is now, because they were forced to change the other one. So maybe this is also an understatement. But nevertheless, let's just take it at face value. 20% is huge. This is really, really, really big. And what does that indicate? It indicates one of two things. And either the Israelis are on edge, you know, they're rattled by being in Gaza, they're shitting their pants, and they're killing each other, you know, out of fear, because they've got their finger on the trigger, they're panicked, which shows you that they are not ready for what, you know, for fighting man to man. So it's either that, or the Israelis are firing so indiscriminately that, you know, to the point that they're killing 20% of the casualties are friendly fire, and it shows you what they're doing to Palestinians, right? So if they're killing that many of their own troops, what do you think they're doing to Palestinians? This indicates how grave and sadistic the policy is, right? You know, no professional army operates like this, because you end up with stuff like this. And even that doesn't seem to deter the Israelis. For them, it seems that, you know, killing 20% of the casualties being friendly fire is an acceptable price, as long as you're also massacring Palestinians. So let that, you know, be an indicator of what the Israeli mentality is and the performances on the ground. It's crap. I want to show you something here from the BBC, okay? And this is very screwed up. So I'll play this clip and then we'll comment.
Blindfolded and beaten for nearly a month. Signs of their detention still clear. These men say Israeli forces did this to them.
We were out in the cold. The rain was falling on us, and we only had one blanket. They abused us, spat on us, and disrespected us. They did not respect the elderly or those injured.
Muhammad Dawood says he was detained in November as he followed Israeli orders to move south.
We came from Beit Lahia in the north and were moving to the south through the safe corridor. They captured us from there. They interrogated us. Are you Hamas? Are you Islamic Jihad? But they couldn't find anything against us.
The men say they were released at a crossing in Rafah with no phones or clothes of their own.
I was in my house. I told them I was sick. I am an old guy. I am 62 years old. They told me, no, you need to find out for us where is Hamas and where the hostages were. When I told them I did not know, they shot my leg. Afterwards, they amputated my leg. They made me sign a paper saying that my leg was not functioning.
I spoke to doctors here in this hospital who told me that the detainees arrived in a poor condition. At least 2 of them are still being treated here. They are all now stuck here in the south, trying to find their families.
Did you understand what he just said? Did you hear that? Because when I heard it the first time, I did a quadruple take. They shot this man in the leg and then chopped his leg off. They amputated it. I don't know what the reason is. I mean, you know, even if it got infected, whose fault is that? The Israelis, because they shot him in the fucking leg. I mean, how sadistic is that?
Their own.
I was in my house. I told them I was sick. I am an old guy. I am 62 years old. They told me, no, you need to find out for us where is Hamas and where the hostages were. When I told them I did not know, they shot my leg. Afterwards, they amputated my leg. They made me sign a paper saying that my leg was not functioning.
I spoke to doctors here.
You know, when we say that the Israelis are worse than Nazis, it's an understatement. It's an understatement. I mean, I feel like there's nothing I can say that you know will further elaborate on this. They chopped the guy's leg off. They shot him in the leg because he didn't know where Hamas is. Like he's supposed to know. You know, technically speaking, even if he were Hamas and he's not, even if you can't shoot people in the leg and torture prisoners and chop their legs off. I don't know if that needs to be explained to the Israelis, but you know, I don't think it would make a difference. For them everything goes, you know. They are worse than the Nazis. They you know, I'll remind you that the proportion, the ratio of civilians killed since October 7th in Gaza is higher than any war you know, in the 20th century. Cold War, World War I, World War II, you know, Afghanistan, Soviet. Pick one, doesn't matter. This is worse. And if you do that to people, you know, let me put it this way. If somebody else behaved like Israel behaved, you know, they would have been invaded or captured. This organization, this country, this entity would have been dissolved. The leaders would have been hanged, you know, like Nuremberg. Of course, without question. But Israel gets special treatment, right? They're the chosen people. It's a supremacist cult. It's a supremacist cult, right? It really is. It doesn't excuse what they're doing, but that's what it is. It's a supremacist cult. You know, just sick. And the worst part is that this has nothing to do with the war. This is what is so shocking, is that even if there was no war in Gaza, this could still happen just on a daily basis. You know, many people get shot for no reason by the Israelis and they're left to bleed. So they literally lose their lives if they don't lose their limbs. This is a normal thing, right? So to speak. It's a common occurrence under Israeli occupation. So it's not even something to do with the war necessarily. It's to do with occupation, right? It's a very sick, a very brutal one. And you know, anybody else behaving like this, no one would tolerate that. No one would tolerate this. It's very bad because not only is Israel, you know, being tolerated, it's being supplied and supported by the West. How can you look at this? This is one video. It's one case. These are just 4 guys, right? And it's already like, what the hell is going on? How can you watch that and just think, you know, yeah, no, Israel has a right to do that. They're justified in doing it. No, that right went out the window. You know, if you're trying to claim that, you know, the Israelis are the chosen people and everybody else is a terrorist, well, Jesus Christ, I mean, you've outdone the terrorists, right? What do you call this behavior? I call that terrorism. When you just randomly arrest people and shoot them in the leg and chop their legs off, that's worse. And not to mention the fact that Hamas are resistance fighters. So, you know, you're on their land. Accept the consequences. Don't come to Palestine if you don't fucking like it. If you want to come to Palestine and live on someone else's land, accept the consequences. Or either that or go home to Ukraine or Australia or Scotland or wherever. Very simple. But this crap shooting people in the leg, this is exactly why people resist. You can't see this stuff happen and then just like, you know, okay, let's go back to normal. No, there's no normal. As long as Israel is behaving like this, people are going to resist. It's a normal human response to want to you know, wipe the floor with whoever behaves like this. And again, this is one example. Remember that the men who were kidnapped, who were stripped, who were blindfolded the other day, it's funny because this is happening so often, you probably don't even know which one I'm talking about. So I'll look up the picture for you so you can see. This is again in Gaza, and they kidnapped about 700 people, right? The Israelis took them and, you know, as usual, accuses them of being Hamas and then releases them because apparently, you know, that intelligence they got was really, really strong. Yeah, look, so... Yeah, here's the video. I showed this to you the other day, and there were images of it that were posted as well. Really sick stuff. And you know what happened? Now we know, the news has come out that many of them died. I mean, I expected this to be true, but we just didn't have any confirmation. But now the Israeli media are reporting that some of these people that were kidnapped, that were stripped, you know, blindfolded, that were tortured, you know, left without food, without water, without clothes, and used as human shields. I want you to look at this video. The Israelis are using these men as human shields. They're trying to push through Gaza with these people in front of them. I mean, once again, you see this irony where they say Palestinians are human shields for existing in their living rooms. You know, look at this hypocrisy. They're patrolling through. They're trying to push through Gaza with these people in front of them. There's no way, you know, there's no way to excuse this kind of behavior. Again, even if these people were Hamas, which they're not, you can't torture prisoners of war. They have rights. Israel signed the Geneva Convention. I know in Israel, you know, Geneva Convention translates to toilet paper, but still, you know, I think it says a lot about the Israelis that they don't even try to put up an appearance of being civilized, of you know, having humanity and compassion. It's just like, no, you know, we're going to strip you, we're going to crap all over you, and we're going to film it, and you know. And their spokesperson will go on CNN and give some, you know, rubbish answer. Yeah, of course they get away with it. There's no, you know, arrest warrant from the ICC. Nothing. Not for one person, not for one single Israeli. Out of all of the Israelis, right, that are involved in this occupation, not a single one, not one motherfucker. Wow. Not to mention these guys, right? These guys who have obviously been tortured without question. Sick behavior, right? And I want to remind you that there is no excuse to torture people. Look at the difference how Hamas treat hostages and prisoners, and how the Israelis treat their prisoners and their hostages and the people that they've captured and detained, right? No comparison. No comparison. Because Hamas treat people with humanity. They give them food. They give them their own food and water when Israel is besieging Gaza. You know, they don't torture them, they don't abuse them. The Israelis, the complete opposite. No food, no water, even though they're swimming in it, you know, and they've stolen it from the Palestinians. We're going to torture you, we're going to film it, make fun of you, curse you, you know. This is a constant. It's not one case, it's not two cases, it's every case. Every case, children, men, women, you know, I've gone through this with you a million times, but this needs to be repeated as long as it happens. You know, just really sick, really, really sick behavior. I mean, this poor guy with his leg chopped off. My goodness. They're worse than Nazis. It's not even close. Not even close. Let's talk about October 7th, because there's more evidence that's come to light, okay? So, before I continue, I just want to thank you guys for the super chats on Rumble. Just a second, I missed some of them, so I'm going to read them out to you. We have one here from Yasmin. Says, just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your work. I'm from Syria, and I always struggled getting people to understand my stance on the conflict. Why and how. Now it's all connected till I found your work. Well, thank you very much. That makes me happy. And We also have Ligia, who says, thank you for all your work. Thank you. And I think we have another one from Gold Alchemist, who says, best of luck to Yemen. We love you so much, our heroes. Yeah, I'm going to get to Yemen in a bit. I'm saving them. I'm saving the best for last. So let me just see. I think we got some on PayPal as well that I wanted to read out and say thank you to. We have one here from... this is from Sabrine, who says, for standing up and giving Palestinians a voice, I thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful. And we have another one from McKay. Thank you. And we have another one from Umayma. Thank you all very much. And if I've missed one, forgive me. I'm trying to make sure I read all of them. We have another one from Millie. There's another one here from Karsten. None of these have notes, but nevertheless, thank you. And let me show you. Let me show you this thing about October 7th. So, okay. So, what you're seeing right now in Israeli media is very interesting, right? There are some outlets that are beginning to scratch their heads and go, oh, okay, so Israel killed a lot of Israelis on October 7th. A lot of Israelis. Not all of them, but a lot. So remember how the lies began. They said Hamas burst into a music festival. They started raping people, you know, like barbarians or some crap. You know, just classic Islamophobia. And then they said, oh, they were cooking babies and all this stuff. And once again, every Zionist accusation is something that Israel has done. Always keep this in mind. And then we find out, okay, so it's not 1,400 that were killed. It's 1,200. Oh, it's not 1,200 civilians. Actually, half of them were in the army. The burned bodies. Who burned those bodies? Hamas didn't bring flamethrowers. They didn't bring, tank shells and artillery with them. They didn't bring missiles, but the Israelis did. Oh, the Israelis were firing from helicopters. The Israelis were firing from tanks. And every single thing that I've just listed to you comes from Israeli sources. It comes from the Israeli military, Israeli media, or Israeli hostages who were there on that day. Every single one. So now they're starting to re-examine the bullshit claims that they spread on October 7th. Okay, so you can see here, this is a report from Israeli television. Okay, and you can see how the tank is firing into the houses, into the kibbutz houses.
יצבים לנו על הכביש, והבנו שהצבא סוף סוף הגיע. לא עוברות 5 או 10 דקות מהרגע שהם מגיעים, והתחיל מטח יריות, טירוף, כולנו השתטחנו על הרצפה.
בשלב הזה לי ברור שהתפקיד שלנו הוא שאנחנו חומה אנושית בין הכוחות שלנו שמגיעים ובינם. עדי ואני מתכווצים ונכנסים למצב של כפיות, ושאני מאחוריו מחבקת אותו.
כולנו התחלנו לרוץ, כולל המחבלים. כולנו הסתתרנו. נשכבים על הרצפה, ביריות, בום בום בום בום, כדורים נכנסים לבית בכל דרך אפשרית. ופתאום מרגמה, לא יודעת, משהו כבד, לא... עשה בום בכל הבית.
אני שומעת את הילדים, הצילו! הצילו, בבקשה, הצילו!
הגענו בבקשה, אני מבקשת. בבקשה, תבוא.
לא אשכח בחיים את הצעקות של הילדים. איך שהם זועקים לעזרה, ומתחים, שוב מתחים, מתחים, מתחים.
כוחות הימ"מ יורים 2 טילי לאו לכיוון הבית.
שוב מתחים, מתחים, מתחים, וידי מנסה להרים את הראש, ואני אומרת, מורידה לו. ככה, מורידה לו את הראש, לא מדברים, אי אפשר לדבר. ואז פתאום עדי אומר לי, הדס, זאב כבר לא איתנו. אנחנו שוכבים על הצד, ואני מסתכלת דרך הכתף. אז אני אומרת לו, גם פסי לא איתנו.
הטנק במקום יורה 2 פגזים, אחד לרצפה, השני לגג הבית.
פתאום בום נוראי, ואני לא מצליחה להזיז את הרגליים, ואני רואה והידיים שלי שמוטות, אני לא מצליחה להזיז כבר לא מחבקת את דושי, ואני אומרת לו, דושי, אני חושבת שנפגעתי. ובשלב הזה אני אומרת לו עוד פעם שאני אוהבת אותו. היה לי ברור שיש פה טנק. זה היה ברור לי לגמרי. אל תשאלי אותי איך, אני לא יודעת. ואז היה הבום השני. אני מרגישה שנפגעתי. ואני מרגישה שזורם עליי הרבה דם. ואני מסתכלת, מפנה את הראש כדי לראות מה קרה לי בדיוק. ואז אני רואה חור כזה בעורק הראשי שלי. ואני לוקחת את האגודל שלי, זאת היד, לוקחת את האגודל שלי ועושה לו חוסם עורקים, כי מה אני עוד יכולה לעשות? עוד רגע זז, וכבר לא זז, אבל אני ככה שוכבת, עד שאני מבינה שאני כבר, אני בתוך שלולית של דם, ואין כבר למה לעשות חוסם, ואני פשוט חוזרת לחבק אותו ושוכבת עם הפרצוף, עם הכל בתוך שלולית ענקית של דם. ואני זוכרת שאני שומעת עוד ירייה אחת מתוך הבית, ואני לא שומעת כלום כבר. ומחכה לכדור שלי.
That's not what we were told on October 7th and in the aftermath, right? They made it sound like it was only Hamas that killed Israelis, period. That's it. The tank shells would explain the level of destruction, the scale of the destruction, and the burnt, charred bodies. And remember, these are in the illegal settlements in the kibbutz. And in the Nova festival, you had the helicopter that was firing on people, you know, just spraying everybody. One of the squadron leaders gave an interview to Ynet and you know, told them to just empty everything they have. So let me show you. This is also from October 7th. This is from this is one of the hostages that was recently released. Okay, maybe. Yeah, here.
באיזשהו שלב העלו אותנו באמת על טרקטור שבאמת לקח אותנו מהשדה ישירות לעזה. שם גם נפצענו מהירי.
כוח צה"ל יורה לעברם לנסות לעצור את הטרקטור שדוהר עכשיו לעזה.
באמצע הנסיעה בטרקטור היה ירי, שכתוצאה ממנו אמא שלי, האהובה שלי, נרצחה, ואני נפצעתי בגב, ואביבי הקטנה נפצעה ברגל. באיזשהו שלב העלו אותנו באמת על טרקטור שבאמת לקח אותנו מהשדה.
So they killed her mother, basically, and you know, this all comes from the Hannibal Directive. So the Hannibal Directive is something that's it's several decades old. The resistance figured something out, that when you're dealing with a society or an entity that has a supremacist complex, then the best way to free your, you know, people that they've captured from you, that they've stolen from you, that they've jailed, that they've murdered, you know, to get some form of justice is to abduct, to take hostages, especially in the military, right? So, which is what happened on October 7th and previous times before. The resistance always go after, especially military, right? And so during that time, the Israelis, this is in the Lebanon war, they came up with something called the Hannibal Directive, which is basically that, look, if there's an Israeli that's captured, the Israeli army is going to murder both the captor and the soldier, okay? It doesn't matter that they kill the Israeli. They just don't want to have to concede anything to the resistance, okay? So they formally canceled it a few years ago, but that doesn't mean anything in Israel, because I told you they have a military censor, and they still have all these colonial laws in place, and it's an occupation. It's run by the military, right? So the way that Israel behaved on October 7th, it shows you that this thing is still in place. They can say what they want. The way they behaved, which is recorded, which these Israelis themselves are telling you, is that Israel fired at Israelis. You don't bring a tank and fire at a house and you know, without knowing that you're going to kill people inside. come on, this is ridiculous. They knew that there were people inside. That's the point, is that, you know, if we got to kill a few Israelis to kill Hamas, we're going to do that. That's the IDF mentality. And they proved that this Hannibal directive is still in place, you know, or a variant of it is still in place, and they used it on October 7th. And if you look at, this is really interesting, right? This is again from Ynet, from this, that's just their abbreviated name, from the outlet, the Israeli outlet that were censored about the number of wounded. Look what they wrote. This is a few days ago. They wrote that casualties fell as a result of friendly fire on October 7th. But the IDF believes that beyond the operational investigations of the events, it would not be morally sound to investigate these incidents due to the immense and complex quantity of them that took place in the kibbutzim. So those are the settlements that I just showed you. And southern Israeli communities due to the challenging situations the soldiers were in at the time. So what they're saying here is that the Israeli forces killed a lot of Israelis on October 7th, and the quantity is so high, it wouldn't be morally sound to investigate it. Let me translate. Israel killed too many Israelis on October 7th, and if they publish the truth, if they actually launch a formal investigation and the results become known, they will destroy their own narrative about Hamas, right? So, you know, it's almost like every single week there's something new coming out that shows you what the mainstream media were reporting was rubbish. And this is so common because they do this with every single thing. You know, they were saying like, oh, you know, the Viagra thing and Gaddafi, you remember that? You know, or Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction, Assad and the chemical weapons. They always come up with these lies. And you know, the media, instead of questioning or scrutinizing these claims by the government, they'll just report them as fact. And the only time they ever scrutinize them is after the fact, when it's too late. You know, the BBC will come back like 20 years later and make a documentary about, oh, how the Iraqis suffered. Yeah, well, why don't you worry about that before you helped start the war? Remember, mainstream media, before the Iraq invasion, they were on board with everything. They reported it like it's fact. There was only very little scrutiny. The same thing goes for Syria, the same for Afghanistan, the same for Libya, etc. You know, it's always the same thing. October 7th is no different. You know, they come in and say, oh, well, you know, this was all Hamas and no other discussion is allowed. And the same thing with the February 24th, 2022 with Ukraine. Only the government narrative is allowed. And this shows you that the media that exists in the West is not media, it's state media. It's the most, you know, it's the hardest, purest form of state media because you don't even know that it's state media. And it just lines up with everything the government says. And they give you this impression that, you know, they have this allure of being independent and objective, but they're spoon feeding you just bullshit that comes from the government. And they're so good at it that most people don't even realize they're watching state media. So once again, only after the fact, the truth starts to trickle out and come out. Here, let me play you a clip from Mearsheimer. He's talking about this Hannibal directive.
It's quite clear that on October 7th, a good number, we don't know what the number is, but a good number of the Israelis who were killed were not killed by Hamas. They were killed by the IDF. And I find that hardly surprising, given the nature of the fight that was taking place. It is hard to discriminate in those situations. Now, the Hannibal doctrine is a very different matter. The argument there, or the claim there, is that what the Israelis do is that if it looks like an Israeli soldier or even an Israeli citizen is going to be captured by Hamas or some other terrorist group, to use the Israelis' language to describe those groups, then the IDF will kill those Israelis so that they don't become hostages. And the logic here is that Israelis have such a high regard for human life that if hostages are captured, it will be almost impossible for Israel not to pay an enormous price to get those hostages back. So it's better to surreptitiously kill them, better for the IDF to surreptitiously kill them rather than have them become hostages. And there is a great...
Yeah, the Israelis have such a high regard for human life. I know he's not saying that, but it's just so funny to listen to, right?
Deal of evidence that there is this Hannibal doctrine in practice inside of Israel.
That's murder.
I guess you could call it that.
Okay.
You know, once again, even if you want to believe that Hamas killed 100% of the Israelis that were killed on October 7th, this doesn't change the underlying fact that Israel is occupying Palestine and Palestinians have a right to resist. Yes, it's tragic. Loss of human life is tragic. But if you know you don't want that, then don't come to someone else's country, invade them, steal their resources, steal their land. Remember, these settlements, these kibbutz, belong to the people in Palestine, in Gaza. 70% of the people that live in Gaza, they come from outside of Gaza because they were kicked out of their homes and their homes were stolen by Israelis, right? So when Hamas attacked on October 7th, they're attacking their own bloody homes. If someone comes to your house and kicks you out, and then you come back years later and try to take back the house, that doesn't make you a terrorist. It makes you a normal fucking person. Here, look at the tanks on October 7th firing at the settlements. This is the footage, right, that I wanted to show you.
בפעם הראשונה מאז ה-7 באוקטובר, אנחנו מקבלים הזדמנות נדירה לראות מלמעלה את הטרגדיה של קיבוץ בארי, כפי שהכוחות ותושבי הקיבוץ ראו אותה בזמן אמת. בשעה 4:20 אחר הצהריים, יותר מ9 שעות אחרי שחדרו לבארי מאות מחבלים, שכונות שלמות בקיבוץ עולות באש.
אני צופה עכשיו על בארי, על החלק הצפוני. אני רואה מוקד עשן בחלק הצפוני מערבי מול הבית עלמין. שם זה הקרקלים השרופים?
התיעוד הזה חושף בפנינו את היקף הלחימה ומספר המחבלים הבלתי נתפס שהשתלטו על הקיבוץ. הוא תיעד את הטנק שסייע לכוחות בבית של פסי וירה פגזים לעבר הבית. והם הביאו פתאום טנק. אני אומרת לאחד החיילים, תגיד, אבל אם אתם יורים פגזים זה לא יפגע בבני הערובה? אז הוא אומר לי, לא, אנחנו רק עושים את זה בצדדים, להוריד קירות. הוא מעצים את סימני השאלה בהתנהלות צה"ל והימ"מ מול בית עם 15 בני ערובה.
בא לראות טנק בתוך בארי. עושה על הכביש. הופה, היה שם איזה ירי. וואו.
פתאום בום נוראי. ואני לא מצליחה להזיז את הרגליים. היה לי ברור שיש פה טנק. זה היה ברור לי לגמרי. אני נפגעתי ועדי מהרסיס של הפגז של הטנק. כי זה היה ממש באותו רגע.
התיעוד החדש חושף שפגז נורה לכיוון הבית של פסי כבר בשעה 5:30 באור יום, שעה וחצי אחרי שהגיעו הכוחות לאזור. לוחמים ששהו במקום מספרים שזה היה ירי האזהרה הראשון, אחריו הטנק נפגע, והגיע טנק אחר שהשלים את המשימה.
הופה, היה שם איזה ירי. וואו.
בתיעוד הבא אנחנו מקבלים
This is a very different picture from what they were telling us. So they've been sitting on this footage for months now, literally months. Because if this had come out the same day, it'd be very hard to start saying, well, this was all Hamas' fault. These are Israeli tanks. They're the ones that are, look at all these houses that are smoking. Jesus. I mean, you look how they behave here. You look how they behave in Gaza. And you want to tell me that they have a high regard for human life? I know John Mearsheimer is not saying that, but he's saying what the Israelis like to tell themselves, right? Here, I'll play the rest of the clip. Look, more shooting.
בתיעוד הבא אנחנו מקבלים חיזוק למחדל נוסף שחשפנו במהדורה. כוחות רבים שחיכו בכניסה לקיבוץ בארי בשעות אחר הצהריים ולא נכנסו פנימה. שיירת הרכבים הזו תועדה כבר בשעה 4:30 בשבת, שיא הלחימה ביישוב. היא מתחילה בכביש 232 ומגיעה עד לשער הצהוב של הקיבוץ.
באזור שעה 18:10, מה שנגלה לפניי זה פשוט סדק של מאות חיילים, עשרות מכוניות מג"ב ואחרים, כשהחיילים מדוגמים מכף רגל עד ראש. אני פניתי באופן אישי לכל קצין שראיתי, מרב סרן, ושאלתי אותו מי מנהל האירוע, מי מפקד באירוע, והוא אמר לי לא, אני רק מפקד על 5 האלה, ועברתי קצין אחר ואמר לי אני רק מפקד על 10 האלה, וכל אחד שאלתי אותו, אבל מי מתכלל את כל האירוע, מי מפקד פה האירוע? אף אחד לא ידע, היה נראה כאוס פיקודי טוטלי. ואני אומר, חבר'ה, נלחמים ושוחטים משפחות, חייבים להיכנס, ואין עם מי לדבר.
אנחנו יצאנו, עברתי בין כל החיילים וצעקתי מי חוזר לבארי, והלכתי לדבוקות. לא יכול להיות שאתם עומדים פה. אנשים זועקים לעזרה בקיבוץ, כולם עומדים. אף אחד לא מדבר, אף אחד לא אומר אני.
500 חיילים בחוץ שעומדים, מאורגנים, עם כלבים, עם ציוד, עם הגנה, עם כלי רכב, עומדים בחוץ ואף אחד לא ניהל את זה. לרוץ פנימה ולמשוך ילדים החוצה מהממדים שנשרפים, ואימהות וזקנים. אנשים פה בכל דקה איבדו דם. והצבא שהיה כלום, היה פה בחוץ, עמד, לא הבין מה קורה פה.
בימים האלה צה"ל עסוק בלחימה ברצועת עזה, והתחקירים החשובים בנוגע למחדל ה-7 באוקטובר אפילו לא החלו. התיעוד שחשפנו כאן מספק הצצה לשבת השחורה, אבל חודשיים אחרי לתושבי בארי, כמו יתר תושבי העוטף בערים, במושבים ובקיבוצים, מגיע לשמוע תשובות. היה
פשוט בעיה פיקודית, והרוח הלחימה, החתירה למגע, פשוט לא הייתה שם. בזה זמנים ושעות שהיינו חייבים להציף את הקיבוץ בחיילים, נכנסו כוחות מאוד מאוד מצומצמים ומאוד קטנים. אז אם בפנים הייתה בעיה וכל היום נלחמנו לבד, ההפתעה שלנו עוד הייתה עוד יותר גדולה כשיצאנו החוצה.
Wow, it's almost like, you know, makes you think of like the Israelis are not keen on fighting face to face when it comes to Hamas. You know, they like to talk big, right? They like to talk big, but anytime there's an actual challenge, like an actual adversary, a military adversary, they back out. They don't want to go in. I understand why, but it says a lot. So basically, the conclusion here, and once again, I am only quoting Israeli media, Israeli people, and especially Israelis who were there that day. Nobody else. No one else is being referred to in this conversation, or cited or quoted. What do these Israelis tell us? These eyewitness accounts. They tell us, they reveal that the Israelis killed their own people and stood outside the kibbutz and didn't go in. Now, this, once again, we can come to either one of two conclusions. The Israelis are either cowards or they let it happen. I don't know. But, the bigger issue here is not that they didn't go in, is that they blew up, houses with tanks, which is ridiculous. You don't resolve a hostage situation by firing, a shell into a house from a tank. This is insane. You don't do that. I know I shouldn't have to explain this, but I'm going to... That's not how you do this, right? In England, you would send the SAS. They will study the room and they'll crawl out of your own butt and liberate everybody with no people killed, right? But the Israelis think that they know how to do things better, and they just murder everybody, including their own people, and then blame it on Hamas. Very good tactic, It's especially effective because people in the West are brainwashed morons because there's no education system and no proper media. So you end up with people that are gullible. Oh, Israel said that? Yeah, it must be true, yeah. Would it make a difference? Would it make a difference? The Israelis could say and do whatever they want, and they would still find an excuse to come into Gaza because they occupied Gaza for a long time, until 2005. And then the siege is a year later, so they never really stopped occupying it. But they would come up with something else. At the end of the day, this is not really relevant because to what's happening in Gaza, because they have bombed Gaza a million times. What is important here is to show you how the Israelis lie through their teeth. They lie like you wouldn't believe. Even to right now at this moment in the mainstream media, they still won't touch this subject, which is funny because in Israeli media they're already trying to re-examine what happened on October 7th. Who came and wrought all this havoc and destruction? Hamas couldn't do that. Hamas, you tell me Hamas stood outside the house and fired on themselves with imaginary tanks. The destruction here is on a scale that requires helicopters, drones, tanks. You can't do that with an assault rifle. You can't do that with an AK-47. And the footage, I don't know about this video, but the first one which was released by the Israeli army, by the IDF. I mean, they released their own footage, and you can see how they're firing at everybody at that festival. So yeah, it's very important to re-examine this stuff because we need to establish this once and for all, that the Israelis are liars, and you should never trust them on anything they say, even to tell you the time or the weather. Because if you can lie about this, you can lie about anything. I mean, this is something, it's incredible. Especially they make it out to be such a horrific thing, and then it turns out they are the ones who committed half the killing, right? And they don't tell you that half the people killed were soldiers. I mean, the Israelis publish the names, but it doesn't. No one in the mainstream media picks it up. They just ignore it like it's not there. It's incredible. It's incredible. So when we go back to this Israeli outlet here, and they say that it wouldn't. What was the phrase? It would not be morally sound to investigate the incidents of friendly fire. I bet you it wouldn't. That wouldn't go down too well in Israel, would it? The lies. The lies. This is incredible, really. They always come up with these lies and false flags to justify, unbelievable amounts of destruction. And what's crazy is that even if you believe this bullshit, whatever it is, weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons in Syria, Russia, Ukraine, or October 7th, if you believe the mainstream media narrative, it still doesn't justify what comes afterwards, because the crimes that come afterwards are so big that it dwarfs, whatever happened originally. It just dwarfs it. It's not. It doesn't even register. So, whatever way you look at this, there's no excuse for Israel's behavior. There's no excuse. Criminality of the highest order. It's multiple layers of criminality. I always tell you this. Let me show you more criminality. So, more criminal behavior. This is from, I think Israelis are really classy people. So I want to show you just how much class they have, right? It sounded like Hamas. Take a look at this.
Why? What did they do
Because
to you?
people in Gaza need to die.
Is that seriously what you think?
I am.
She went away.
Why? What did they do
Because
to you?
people in Gaza need to die.
Is that seriously what you think?
I am killed 2 people Palestinian.
I don't believe you did that.
I am in the army in Israel.
Are you actually in the army?
Yes, I am in the army. And boom, 2 people.
2 Palestinians?
Yes.
And you're happy about it?
Yes, of course. I want to kill more.
The world's gonna see your actions.
Fuck people.
Yeah, I told you, all Israelis are in the military, and they stay in the military till they're 40. But that's a fact you will never, ever hear on mainstream media. I haven't heard it once. Not once have I heard them say this fact. I mean, it's so obvious. You could just look it up. Everybody knows this, but they won't mention it in the context of what's happening, right? Say, oh, look at this poor girl being dragged off in a truck, and they don't tell you, oh, she's in the fucking IDF. The Israeli mentality is that everybody in Gaza is not a civilian, because apparently they voted for Hamas, even though half of them are babies. But everybody in Israel is a civilian, even though they're all in the military. Just the world upside down. That's how the Israelis think. Here's more classy behavior. This is from Gaza. People, Israelis going into people's homes and abusing prisoners.
לא ככה מתדיינים.
עם דובונים. בנוסף לכל. מה אתה מאחל לנו, אביזמיל?
מקלחת.
טוב, אנחנו נפתח מהלכי דפו. מה אתה מאחל לנו?
לנפוש בחוף של עזה.
ג'מיל, מה אתה מאחל לנו?
לזיין על החוף של עזה.
So I don't need to explain this to you, you know, but I'll say it again because it warrants repeating. You can't blindfold prisoners of war or detainees. You can't. It's illegal and it's wrong. And it's, you know, the stress positions that they put them in. These guys still have their clothes, but, you know, I guarantee you whatever food these guys are eating, none of it was shared with the Palestinians. So, you know, the trend that they have, they always film themselves, the Israelis, you know, whether they're driving a car or sitting down here in somebody's home. They film themselves and then film the prisoners, which is another war crime. You can't film prisoners of war for public curiosity. It's Article 13 Geneva Convention. It's forbidden. It's a war crime. And I called out the Russians for doing this and the Ukrainians for doing this. You know, it's humiliation. It's degrading treatment. You can't do that. And by the way, you see, I don't know what this guy is eating. It looks like I don't know what brand it is, but this is a reminder. Whatever, any company that wants to donate food to the Israelis, you boycott. I know this goes without saying, but you know, McDonald's, for example, Burger King, boycott it, not a cent, because they're literally donating. They're taking that money and using it to produce food that they give to the IDF so they can continue committing war crimes. So, you know, not worth a cent. Here's a video of the Israelis basically. They're in somebody's house in Gaza and they're saying, "Oh, this is our new home."
אתה מכין קפה? איפה אתה נמצא? בבית. בבית? איזה בית יפה, יאללה.
And I'll come back to that in a second, because if you think that the Israelis, they just want to go into Gaza and defeat Hamas and leave, no, not at all. Here. They're already planning. They're planning settlements. Literally. Here's another one. Here's another video where they're saying basically that. So this was posted. This was posted on TikTok, right? And there's an Israeli pizza chain. They basically printed their logo on a flag and brought it to Gaza and hung it on a building and said they're going to open a new chain there, right? And
סניף בית חנון החדש של פיצה סטורי, הפתיחה בקרוב.
פיצה סטורי.
סניף ייפתח במבנה הזה, לזכיינות, כוכבית 3606, פיצה סטורי, הטעם זה כל הסיפור. סניף בית חנון החדש.
Here's another one. This is from Shaja'a neighborhood in Gaza, in East Gaza, and they put up, during Hanukkah, they put up a candle in someone's home. I mean, the Hanukkah candle is not the problem here. The problem is that they've bombed the Palestinians, driven them from their homes, and then they're defacing, you know, degrading, abusing, you know, trespassing on their property, and then putting up an Israeli flag with the Hanukkah candle. You see that this is the problem with Zionism, is that they appropriate and they take all the elements that you would associate normally with Judaism and then bring that over and make it Israel, right? So so they can claim that being Jewish means being Israeli, and if you say anything against Israel, you're saying something against Jews, right? Which is not true, but that's the danger of Zionism, is that they appropriate the religion. It's like ISIS with Islam. It's like the Crusaders with Christianity. It's the same extremism that you know, hijacks the religion, uses it as a political cover, and then, you know, they come to the same region, the same area, and murder people. Here's another video the Israelis posted of themselves committing war crimes. So they've blindfolded everybody. They've chained them up like slaves, and they've stuck an Israeli flag on the first one. I mean, this is, you know, barbaric beyond beyond words. Look at that. It's like a chain of people who've done literally nothing. Once again, if someone did that to you and you don't resist, there would be something wrong with you. So the fact that Palestinians resist against Israel is the most normal thing, is the most natural human response possible. Palestinians wouldn't be normal if they just accepted this and didn't fight back. You know, if someone did that to, you know, people in the West, they'd be like, oh my God, the biggest tragedy in history. How dare you? Let's bomb you, nuke you. You know, everything is justified. But, you know, Israelis can do that to Palestinians, normal, no problem. You know, and if you fight back, you're a terrorist. It's really insane. And there's another thing on Telegram. The Israelis have a channel on Telegram. It's called 72 Virgins, which is basically they're trying to make fun of Islam. And they have this channel to post pictures of you know, bodies. So basically corpses that they've defiled or violated, people they've killed. It's really horrific shit, you know. Even the Israeli paper Haaretz reported on it. And the IDF, so it says the IDF unit responsible for psychological warfare operations has a Telegram channel called 72 Virgins Uncensored, which targets local audiences with exclusive content from the Gaza Strip. And yeah, so I've looked in there. It's you know, I don't recommend you do that. Don't. It's really screwed up shit. And once again, goes without saying, this is not just, you know, depraved behavior. It's criminal. It's literally criminal. So I find it shocking that they were able to put up, you know, they were able to put out a warrant so quickly for Putin at the ICC. It took them a few weeks. But it's been 2.5 months now in Gaza, and they can't prosecute a single person, a single one, like a private. Obviously, it's meant for more for leadership positions, but you know, I don't buy that. We know who Karim Khan is, the chief prosecutor. He's a sellout. He's been sent by Britain and Israel to cover for them. He dropped all the investigations on Afghanistan, U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan. He's their guy, right? So. Yeah, I just thought I'd show you some of these clips. These are just from the last week, so there will be more undoubtedly. And these are just from Gaza, right? So I can show you some from the West Bank, which are, you know, which also go to show. It goes to show you again, there's nothing to do with Hamas. It's got everything to do with Israel because there's no Hamas in the West Bank. And nevertheless, the Israelis are invading Jenin, invading Nablus. And you know, what they did here with this mosque, they basically they went into the mosque and they started saying Jewish prayers. I'm not sure what it was, but they were basically, you know, yelling stuff over the loudspeaker in Jenin, okay, in the West Bank. Look.
חברים, כאן המסגד בג'נין, במ"פ ג'נין. חברים, כאן המסגד בג'נין, במ"פ ג'נין.
And from outside?
יאללה, תנו. God.
Again, there's nothing wrong with Jewish prayers, but you don't burst into, you know, a temple, a mosque, and then, you know, start broadcasting whatever you like over the speakers. And he's clearly making fun of the call to prayer, the you know, adhan. So that's the problem. Okay, you can't just burst in and do whatever you like. If someone had done that in a synagogue, they would be outraged, and rightfully so. But you know, people don't behave like that. But the Israelis do. and you know, they take it upon themselves to do this, to film it. They post it online. There's no backlash, and then people, you know, claim that that Jews feel unsafe. I want you to look at this video and then ask yourself, how do you think Muslims feel then? You know.
חברים, כאן המסגד בג'נין, במ"פ ג'נין.
Yeah, it's very obvious he's making fun of the Muslim call to prayer. So again, you know, I know the Israeli spokesperson is going to go on you know, CNN and say, oh, they're just having a bit of fun. No, it's not a bit of fun. You don't joke around with that. And you know, I'll just remind you that when it comes to religion, Israel, they've destroyed the oldest church in Gaza, and just last week, I remember we talked about this. They destroyed the oldest mosque in Gaza, which also used to be a church. So, you know, they basically taking out not just killing people, but taking out and destroying their cultural and religious heritage, which is its own category of war crimes. And the fact that they behave like this in Jenin, in the West Bank, once again, it goes to show you that it's got nothing to do with Hamas. And nothing justifies this kind of behavior. It's got everything to do with Israel. It's how Israelis are brought up, how they're indoctrinated in the military academies. You know, this supremacist complex, like they can get away with whatever they want, they can do whatever they want. No, I mean, if you want to do that, you can't turn around and then claim that you're more civilized than everybody else and you're a democracy. You're not. You can't have both. So. You know, very disgusting behavior to put it mildly. Very, very disgusting behavior. And it's all across the board. This is just 1 week. This is 1 week. Do you know how many videos there are of crap like this from the last months, years, decades? This is nothing. It's 1 week. And it's you know, they won't show this on TV because they want to paint Arabs and Muslims specifically as being, you know, backwards, but the ones that behave truly backwards are the British, American, Israeli soldiers that come to the Middle East to murder people and destroy history and you know, basically the cradle of civilization, to pillage and rape it. That's what being backwards really means. It's shameful. So, speaking of which, let me show you something here. This is, so there's an Israeli sniper that shot dead 2 Palestinian Christian women, a mother and a daughter. Here's their photograph. So this happened in Gaza. You had people who were sheltering inside of, it's called the Holy Family Parish in Gaza. You know, they were shooting anyone who goes outside. And we saw this before in the Indonesian hospital. And, you know, this has become a common practice in Gaza, that the Israelis will get people who are crammed in an area or sheltering somewhere, you know, to get them in there and keep them there, and they're stuck and they can't go out, or they, you know, they'll risk being killed. One of them went out, the other tried helping, and they were both murdered. And the Pope even commented on this, and I'm going to show you in a second. He called it terrorism. Now, just look what else happened. Also, 6 Palestinians were killed and dozens were injured after the Israeli forces bombed the headquarters of the Young Men's Christian Association in Gaza, which houses about 250 displaced people. You know, just turned to rubble. And this shows you again how, you know, under the Israeli occupation, it doesn't matter what religion you are. If you're not Zionist, they will kill you. They will kill you. And let me just play you this clip from the Pope.
Continuo a ricevere da Gaza notizie molto gravi e dolorose. Civili inermi sono oggetto di bombardamenti e spari. E questo è avvenuto persino all'interno del complesso parrocchiale della Santa Famiglia, dove non ci sono terroristi, ma famiglie, bambini, persone malate con disabilità, suore. Una mamma e sua figlia, la signora Navda Khalil Anton e la figlia Samar Qamar Anton, sono state uccise e altre persone ferite dai tiratori scelti mentre andavano in bagno. È stata danneggiata la casa delle suore di Madre Teresa, colpito il loro generatore. Qualcuno dice è il terrorismo, è la guerra. Sì, è la guerra, è il terrorismo. Per questo la scrittura afferma che Dio fa cessare le guerre, rompe gli archi e spezza le lance. Preghiamo il Signore per la pace.
You know, okay, very good. I appreciate it, but you know, why is he only saying this now? Once again, you know, when they bombed the church, the oldest church in Gaza, that's already weeks ago. And like I said, everyone is suffering under the Israeli occupation. The Christians suffer just as much as the Muslims. The Israelis don't care. So, you know, great, but it's not enough. Look at what happened also on. Let me show you some clips from TV. So this is from Sky, and this is the Israeli spokesperson.
So I would reject the categorization of the words he used, cold-blooded killing. That would indicate a deliberate targeting of civilians. That's something we don't do. We don't shoot people who are going to church to pray. It just doesn't happen.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
That's not the way the IDF operates. That's against our rules of engagement. We don't know exactly what happened, and I would urge people not to jump to conclusions. There have been in the...
Yeah, they both had a heart attack and just dropped dead in the street, right? That's the context. They said the same thing every time they get questioned about people they murdered. Like, for example, Shireen Abu Akleh, who's also Christian Palestinian. They also said, well, we have to see what happened. We don't know what happened. And then they never get back to anybody. They killed her. They killed this Shireen Abu Akleh, just like they killed these two women. They murdered them. You know, it's not out of the ordinary. This is an everyday thing. It's nothing special even at this point. But, you know, in the sense that it's become so commonplace. It is, of course, important. But, you know, his lies, they're so bad. God.
In the past, all sorts of stories put out by Hamas and their supporters accusing Israel of all sorts of terrible deeds. And in the end, they've proved to be wrong. And we're talking about a
yeah, the Pope is from Hamas, you know.
Combat area. There's exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and the Hamas terrorists. To say that Israel is deliberately targeting Christian worshippers, that's a terrible accusation that is unfounded.
Would you acknowledge, Mr. Regev, that the bullets that killed these women were fired by the IDF?
I do not know that to be true. Obviously, we're looking into it. Could they have been killed by Palestinian terrorists who were shooting at our people indiscriminately? I don't know. But we've got to be very careful.
Yeah, you know, like Hamas are well known for shooting at Christians, right? What an idiot. Who buys that bullshit?
There've been countless stories since this conflict began, where reports out of Gaza, people are 100% sure that Israel did something terrible or this, that, or the other. And in the end, it's been proven conclusively that that was not the case. And people have had to retract their words. Unfortunately, some have refused. But
really, I'd love if he could name one example, because I can't think of anything. It's more like Israel's been lying about the resistance the whole time. Here's another clip. This is from Sky, and the Archbishop of Westminster. Look what he had to say.
The Israeli Defense Force says didn't happen, wasn't them?
Well, I think that's hard to believe, frankly, because the people in Gaza and the Cardinal Archbishop of Jerusalem, they're not given to tell lies.
So you don't believe the Israeli Defense Force?
No, I don't.
The Israeli Defense Force said...
Her face is so funny. She's like, Sir, you can't tell the truth on the program. Please say you believe the Israeli Defense Force.
Didn't happen, wasn't there?
Well, I think that's hard to believe, frankly, because the people in Gaza and the Cardinal Archbishop of Jerusalem, they're not given to tell lies.
So you don't believe the Israeli Defense Force?
No, I don't.
The Israeli Defense.
Again, where were these people, though? Very, very good. But where were these people before? Because they could have opened their mouths before. Maybe they haven't. I don't know. But you know, the point of this is that the Israelis. Do you see how the spokesperson? He tried to make it sound like, oh no, Israel never targets Christians. So it's because he's speaking to people that are mostly Christian, right? In the West, at least in name. Now the thing is that I'm not gonna give the Pope and the Archbishop here too much crap, because who I would give crap are people in the West in general. You know, they right now it's Christmas in 1 week. And you got people everywhere putting up trees and, singing Christmas songs and about Jesus and Bethlehem. And at the same time, the Israelis are bombing Jesus' birthplace. They're murdering the people who are the closest living descendants to Jesus and his disciples, who are Palestinians, who are from that area. Because I'm sorry, Israelis who come from Ukraine don't have more in common with, people who lived in Palestine 2,000 years ago than people from Palestine. So, this hypocrisy it really stinks. It really stinks because they don't say a goddamn word, nothing, ever, right? It's just total support for Israel all the time. And this shows you two things, that these people, they don't care about, humanity, about human rights, about international law. They are brainwashed by Zionism. And it shows you also that, when it comes to religion, I mean, the Crusaders, they went to, the Levant, they invaded it. And the first thing they did when they captured Jerusalem is they massacred everyone in Jerusalem, including the Christians. So, there's something really rank here. There's something really stinky with all of this stuff. Because they want to act like, they're benevolent and they're charitable and it's Christmas and all these things, but they don't actually celebrate, or rather, they don't practice Christian values. Because if you're Christian, you cannot support Israel. You cannot support Israel. This bullshit Christian Zionism is it's something invented in the West to create Israel. No one in the Middle East actually believes in that crap. And also, this goes to show you that Zionism doesn't mean you're Jewish. Joe Biden is a so-called Christian. He's a Zionist. He's probably more Zionist than some Israelis. So, actually, for sure. And that goes to show you that it's a political ideology. It's got nothing to do with religion. Let me show you another clip here. This is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem. What does she have to say?
If a ceasefire means the return of the hostages and the dismantlement of a genocidal regime that has stated that they're going to attack us again, then everybody would be in favor of a ceasefire. But if a ceasefire means that we're just going to keep them quiet for a bit until they attack again, then it's Israel's obligation to defend its citizens and destroy that threat, don't you think?
Why is it necessary, it is reported, to start shooting, having snipers outside a church?
I saw the reports this morning. The church, there are no churches in Gaza, so I'm not quite sure where the report is talking about.
There's a Catholic church in there, isn't there? That is.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no Christians because they were driven out by.
Well, respectfully, there are Christians, because I spoke to an MP yesterday who has family members in.
There are no. What the fuck? If any Christians have left Palestine, it's because Israel's driven them out. You cow.
The church who are Christians.
Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know who was attacked. I didn't see the report. If a ceasefire means the return of the hostages and the dismantlement of a genocidal regime that has stated that they're going to attack us again, then every.
Wow. I was not expecting that. Once again, you see that this is this is a big problem, Zionism. Christians, Muslims, they are all oppressed by Israel. Even Jews. Jews are oppressed by Israel because Israel Zionists want to bring all the Jews around the world to Palestine, where they're the least safe. And on top of that, the Arab Jews that are in Israel were brought there by force. They did not want to come there. They were forced out of Iraq. They were forced out of Egypt. And the Israelis would tell you, oh yeah, it's because the Arabs, they hate the Jews. No, that's complete bullshit. Why did this never happen then in all of history until the moment Israel was created? There's no such thing as pogroms and holocausts in Arab countries. That's not a thing. Never has been. That's a European thing. So it's part of European history. It's not part of Arabic history. Jews are not persecuted, have never been persecuted. Israel bombed the synagogues in Iraq to make Jews there feel unsafe and move them to Israel. And then Israel stole the Jews from Syria and stole Jews from Egypt because not enough people moved to Israel. So they want to populate Israel with all the Jews around the world and legitimize the occupation. But as I said, not enough people moved there. So they started bringing Jews from Ethiopia, Jews from Egypt, all over, and from Yemen. So they were brought there by force. They are also victims of Israel. Arab Jews, and then we come to Arab Christians and Arab Muslims, and once again, you have to understand that Christianity does not come from New York. It comes from Palestine, and it was spread from Syria. So obviously, you still have Christians there. I know this shouldn't need explaining, but the people, Christians who live in the Middle East are treated very well. They are protected. They face no discrimination whatsoever. Why would they? The only place they do face discrimination is in Israel. That's the only place where Christians are persecuted. If you look at how it is in Jerusalem, Israeli settlers walk past churches and spit at the church. There's literally like hours of CCTV footage of this stuff. They just walk by and spit on the church. You don't see Palestinians behave like that. No one behaves like that. As I said, Christians are protected. They're treated well. There's no difference because the society is secular more or less in that aspect, right? Especially in Syria, it's a secular country. But again, even if you want to talk about Iraq or you want to talk about Palestine, it's the same situation. The Christians are protected, and the only ones that persecute them are Israel. I mean, this woman, this deputy mayor of Jerusalem, you can see how she's literally erasing them from existence by saying there are no churches in Gaza. She's saying that on purpose. She knows exactly that she knows very well there are churches in Gaza, and she knows very well there are Christians there, but she doesn't want anybody to know about them. She wants to erase them from existence, just like everybody else in Gaza. This is a constant with Israel and Zionism. They don't care about religion. It's do you support this giant Western base called Israel or not? If you don't, we're going to kill you. We're going to make your life hell, and so on. This is the only thing that it comes down to. So, no surprise that they are killing Christians. I just wish that these religious leaders would open their mouths a bit more, because it would be greatly appreciated, because, Palestinians are worth standing up for, regardless what religion they are. Now, again, I'm probably being a bit too harsh to them, because they did go on TV and did call the Israelis out, but and maybe they have said something before, I just didn't know about it. My point is just that the occupation targets everybody equally, and that is the problem itself, the occupation. Thank you, Crazy Puppet, for the donation. It's good to see you again. Crazy Puppet says, Richard, not everyone is aware or not everyone knows the content of their reporting. Them coming around should be appreciated, less of condemnation of mistakes. Them reporting due to personal or company is a positive. It is, absolutely is. You're right. And it's good to see you again. Crazy Puppet also said that I wish Rumble donation chat would work on the app instead of going through the internet browser. You know what? I can write to them. I don't really know anyone, but I'll try my best. And thanks for telling me. Vidro says, thank you, brother. Your Twitter posts always have the better stuff that I bet Israel hates when you post. I appreciate that, and I always forget to plug the Twitter, so I'll plug it now before we talk about Yemen, which I've been saving the best for last. So here we go. Again, I'm posting constantly, like literally 24/7 about what's happening in Gaza. So if you guys have Twitter, make sure you follow. That's my handle. It's at Richie Medhurst, so RICHIMEDHURST, and I'm copying and pasting the link in the chat, in the live chat. We also have some donations up here. Thank you very much to Ina for the PayPal donation. Once again, I'll remind you guys to please donate if you can, because they demonetized me. I have no clue when YouTube will work again. So for now, I have to make up for everything that was lost on YouTube, or by YouTube removing the monetization, which sucks. And I can't live stream there either, because if I say anything naughty, they will delete it. So anyway, I don't think we've had anyone join on Patreon. So if you haven't joined on Patreon, please do, so I can play a crab dance. I've been waiting the whole time. So again, Patreon is basically, you do a monthly donation. It could be £1 a month or £2 a month, euros, dollars. It doesn't matter. It's one of the best ways of supporting. We have Patreon, and then there's PayPal and Rumble. And again, I'm very grateful to all of you. So let me show you this clip. This is from Gaza, from two Israelis, and so I want to play this clip from Gaza. Listen to these two Israelis speak and tell me if you notice anything a bit weird.
Thomas Portes, le LFI, merci pour votre soutien. Joyeux Noël, Khouya.
Notice anything weird? Let me play it again.
Thomas Portes, le LFI, merci pour votre soutien. Joyeux Noël, Khouya.
Yes, they're speaking French. So why are two Israelis speaking French? That's a good question. Well, remember that Israelis are settlers. They're colonial settlers. Okay, so you have Israelis from everywhere, and what they are referring to, LFI is a party in France. It's called La France Insoumise, and it's Mélenchon's party. And the thing is that LFI are left, okay? They're on the left, and they are the only ones who are sort of criticizing Israel. But remember that, unfortunately, even in European left parties, this only goes so far. But the person they're referring to, Thomas Portes, he was basically saying that all Israelis who go to Gaza should be prosecuted when they come back to France, right, for war crimes. And he makes a very good point. Listen. Right now, you have tons and tons and tons of dual Israeli citizens. So it could be someone who's Israeli and has British citizenship, or German or French, and European Jews. They're going to Israel to occupy Palestine, and they're joining the army. And remember, many of them, when I say joining the army, I don't mean that this is their first time ever doing that. No, these people have already been trained. Remember, if you're Israeli, you have to do military service, men and women, compulsory. And then when you're done, you stay in the army as a reservist till you're 40. So, these people that are going there, because you have 4,000 French citizens, some of them dual Israeli citizens, the majority of them, going to Israel and are fighting in Gaza, right? So just think about that for several reasons. Because number one, they were saying, well, Israel is basically it's facing an existential crisis, and yet all these people are going there to fight. Weird. Fine. The people that are going there, what are they doing? They're going with the IDF into Gaza, and yeah, they're committing war crimes. I mean, we just looked at several videos right now, and this is just today, right? The killing itself is the biggest problem. The cutting off the food, the water. It doesn't matter. Look, when it was time to prosecute Nazis in Nuremberg, the wisdom back then was that, look, these crimes are so big that they're not war crimes anymore. They're crimes against humanity, and every link in the chain is responsible. Everyone, from Goering to a fucking mayor to someone loading trucks, you're all responsible. All of you. You don't get to say, "Oh, I didn't know." You don't get to say, I had nothing to do. I was just following orders. That's not an excuse. And we know for a fact, like the Wehrmacht, they were the Heer, the army were supporting the SS, for example, when they were, shipping people off to camps. So, it doesn't matter if you go to fight or murder people in Gaza and you didn't actually do it yourself. You are part of this outfit. You are going there. You know what's going on, and you're participating in it. In whatever fashion, you're operating a laptop, you're shooting, tank shells. Doesn't matter. You participated in that machine, and you are guilty, and you should be prosecuted for war crimes. The thing is that in Britain, for example, it's illegal for someone to serve in another country's military. You can't do that. Yet, for some reason, we know there are Israelis who have British citizenship that are going and fighting and murdering people in Gaza. I shouldn't say the word fighting, because fighting implies a fair fight. There's actually both sides that are takes two to tango. That's not the case. Israel are not fighting anyone. They just murder people. And then you have some of them that fight against Al-Qassam, which is a minority, and they get, basically Hamas mop the floor with them. So, not really, not what we're talking about here. But, this is really funny that they are filming a video and dedicating this. They're saying his name. They're saying hello from Gaza in French. These people are, I can tell from their accents, they're French natives, and they're telling him, thanks for your support. So that's their answer to his statement that you guys should be prosecuted for war crimes. You see how there's no respect whatsoever. There's no there's no accountability. There's nothing. And this is why Israel gets away with what it does, because no one wants to hold it accountable. This is the problem. It's European support, and when I say European, I mean American as well. It's because of that Israel does these crimes and gets away with it, and they do it at the behest of Europeans as well as their own. But I want to show you also that when it came to, for example, Syria, what happened is that you had ISIS and Al Qaeda fighters that were going to Syria. Traveling through Europe, and they were going, to Turkey, which is a NATO member state, and then crossing the border illegally, going to Syria, and then wreaking havoc. And what happened back then? You had European governments that let these people go. Of course, when they came back, they arrested some of them, right, to make it look like they're doing something. But a lot of them, remember that every single time there's a terrorist attack in Europe, pick one. Every single time, the people that carry out this attack are already known to the security services, which tells you one of two things. They're either complicit, or they're just letting, they're incompetent at their jobs, right? So they're either letting this happen, working with these people in Al-Qaeda, or they're incompetent. And either way, this doesn't fly. And so just like they were letting Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters go through Europe to destroy Syria, they're doing the same thing now with these Israelis. It is not possible with the framework that exists today that European countries don't put their foot down and arrest some of these Israelis. What's happening in Gaza is so bad. I mean, it's like I said, the ratio of civilian deaths is worse than any war in the 20th century. People have been prosecuted for a lot less. They've been stopped and arrested for a lot less. So you can't say that with all these international laws and treaties and the legal framework that exists today, that not a single European country or the United States is willing to put its fucking foot down and actually apply the law equally and arrest Israelis for war crimes. They are letting these Israelis go on purpose because they want them to go and murder people in Gaza. This is, once again, part of their plan. Israel, since the beginning, has been a base for the West. It serves that purpose, but with Gaza, they also have economic incentives, which I talked about in the other videos. So in any case, I just want to show you this because it also shows you that the Israelis, they don't come from Palestine. These are settlers. They're colonial settlers. They're Germans. They're French. They're Scottish. They're English. They're Australian. They're Ukrainian. They're Polish. They're not from fucking Palestine. We're not talking about people who have one parent from either country. No, they're just, both their parents come from Ukraine and went to Palestine and stole someone's home. That's it. And they want Palestinians who have literally nowhere else to go and shouldn't go anywhere else to leave. This is greediness on another level. It's like I always say, multiple levels of criminal behavior. That is the best way to describe Israel. And you can't tell me that you're gonna do your job when it comes to some, half the time, like that, they will turn a blind eye and let all these people go destroy Syria and help Al Qaeda, and they will help ISIS, and they'll help Israel, and then that's it. And then we're supposed to believe that these countries, they care about the justice and they care about war crimes. What a lot of bullshit. If there was any justice, these two clowns, they would be the French police would be waiting for them the moment they touch down, because these people are not only committing war crimes, they're serving in another country's military. How the fuck can you be in two militaries, or shall we say, how it's one thing to have dual citizenship, right? That's not a problem, but you're leaving your country where you live, putting on a uniform, and then murdering people somewhere else. I mean, do I really have to explain this? The funny thing is that Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they have repeated this thing about dual loyalty, which is, it's traditionally considered an anti-Semitic trope. Like you can't say that a Jew has dual loyalty, on one side to Israel or one on the other side to whatever country they come from, because it's anti-Semitic. But what these people are showing us, these Israelis that are leaving Europe, they're leaving the United States, they're going to Gaza on purpose to murder people. I mean, it doesn't, it's incredible. If you had done this to fight, for example, in the Russian military, you'd be arrested. The second you come back to Germany, they would arrest you, and say you committed war crimes in Ukraine, right? So there's definitely a double standard here. And I just remember the speech where Donald Trump was speaking to Jewish Americans, and he said that he said your prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. It's like, what do you mean your prime minister? These people are Americans. It's incredible if you listen to Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the tropes, the anti-Semitic tropes that come out of their mouths. It's incredible, right? If somebody else said that, well, anyway, there's something wrong with this picture, right? To put it mildly, very, very wrong with this picture. Israel and the United Kingdom will not reveal how many dual citizens are serving, quote unquote, or should I say, murdering people in Gaza. It's a secret. They won't say it. I mean, we know it's 4,000 French. That number is probably double if we're talking about the UK. I don't know, but one is too many. In the UK, they passed this law last year, the Nationality and Borders Bill, where they said that if you commit war crimes or you're a terrorist, you can have your citizenship stripped. Now, I don't agree with that, because the second they start doing that, today they'll say, oh, it's for a terrorist, and then tomorrow they'll say, oh, it's for someone we don't like, and you know how it gets. But the government, if they were applying that law fairly, they would strip many Israelis of their citizenship for participating in war crimes, especially when the bill says, when the law says that you can only do this to someone who has the prospect of a second nationality. The Israelis do, they're dual citizens. So if the government cared about applying the law fairly, they would do that. But of course, it's just bullshit that they want to use against people that are, anyone except Zionists and Israelis. There's again a two-tier justice system. Doesn't apply to the Israelis. They can do whatever they want. Remember also that you have a lot of Americans fighting in Ukraine. People that were leaving the UK to do that as well, and then also now in Gaza, you have a lot of Americans that are there too. They found a kit just the other day. Someone took a photograph of it. We know that Biden was pictured, he was photographed with Delta Force, and they had to scrub the photo from the internet because they posted it by accident. So some of them are going there because they're sent as part of the U.S. military. Some of them are going because they're mercenaries, and some of them are going because they want to join in for the fun, in their view. It's funny because at the end of the day, what I call these people are Zionist jihadis, right? They're Zionist jihadis. They are people that are leaving Europe, leaving the United States to go fight in the Levant, in Syria and Palestine, and murder people for their religious extremist views. They're Zionist jihadis. That's what they are. But you're never going to hear the media talk about that. They will start talking about people who go to fight in Syria, even though their own governments are letting them do that. Meaning Western governments allowed these fighters. They sent these people into Syria on purpose to destroy Syria, and then act like they have nothing to do with it. and they'll turn a blind eye to this. It's very funny. It's very funny. Like I said, Zionist jihadis, the best way to describe it. So, let me just say thank you to Gail for the donation on PayPal. Thank you very much. And we have another one here from the Crazy Puppet. It says, good to see your live broadcast. Love the concept to use YouTube channel as a live broadcast. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it worked as well. I'm glad you made it. And it's good to see you, Crazy Puppet. Thank you very, very much. And we have someone who joined, so I owe them a crab dance. This one goes out to Mark. Thank you, Mark, for supporting my work on Patreon. I'm very grateful. And thank you to everybody else who's donating and sharing the videos. It's greatly appreciated. Everybody, put your hands together for Mark.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you. والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh!
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Why you text Sender?
Wait, you're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
All right. let me keep going. And again, thank you, Mark, for the support. Thank you to all of you for the donations. I want to show you something here from. Give me one sec. Yeah, let's talk about Yemen. So this is very important, and I've been looking forward to this. Okay, so this is very, very, very good. So the United States are putting together a coalition to basically contain Yemen with. What Yemen has done is incredible because they've taught the Israelis a lesson and they've given them a taste of their own medicine. They said, you know what, you want to murder Palestinians? You're going to pay for it, and you're going to pay very, very dearly. And when I say dearly, I really mean that. I want to show you some of these statistics which are going to blow your mind, okay? Okay, I posted this yesterday, all right? Here. So 80% of traffic is down at the Israeli port of Eilat, okay? So that's basically 80% of Israel's international trade, roughly, gone down the toilet. And remember, this is on the Red Sea, okay? This is on the Red Sea when you pass around Yemen through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Marine insurance, that's something very important. You remember they sanctioned Russia with this. They said that any European-based company can no longer provide marine insurance, shipping insurance to Russian ships that are carrying Russian petrol or fuel or oil or petroleum products. The cost of that for Israeli ships or Israeli-bound ships, meaning it could be owned by an Israeli or it's going to Israel, the cost of the insurance is through the roof. Absolutely through the roof. 6 major shipping firms, like Evergreen, for example, have halted their tankers. No more traffic through the Red Sea at all. It's not just to Israel. Just no, they're not doing it. And British Petroleum, BP, they're the first company, this is just yesterday, to have stopped their own oil tankers from going through the Red Sea. So what we have here, please listen to this. Do you guys know how people used to sail in the old days, like 200 years ago before the Suez Canal was opened? If you wanted to go from Europe, for example, to India, you had to go, down the Atlantic, around Africa, and then back up to the Indian Ocean. Today, you go through the Suez Canal, right? You go into the Mediterranean Sea, through Egypt, into the Red Sea, and then you go down to the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, right? I mean, again, just to put this on the map, this cut shipping times and costs by so much. I mean, really so much. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, right? So my point here is just that what Yemen have done, is they have taken shipping back 200 years for Europe and for the West. They've set them back 200 years, literally. Okay? So ships are now going, instead of going up through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, they're going all the way around Africa. They need to go all the way down here and up around Africa, like in the old days, like 200 years ago, because they're afraid of going near Yemen in the Red Sea. Good. They should be afraid. And if you want to blame someone, you can blame Israel. Don't blame Yemen, who are the only ones that can call themselves Arabs and the only ones with dignity. I mean, they're not the only ones, Lebanon, Syria, and so on, fine. But out of all the Arab countries, what is Saudi Arabia doing? Nothing. Morocco, nothing. It's like it's not even happening. It doesn't even register. And so the reason the US is putting together this coalition, which is a joke, is because they are having an impact. Yemen are having an impact. This is look, when you're dealing with a society that is controlled by money, the only way to effectuate change is to fuck with their money. And that's what Yemen is doing. They're fucking with their money. Yemen are smart. Why shouldn't they do this? You're passing, when you sail up into the Red Sea, this is their turf. It's their land. You don't have a right to go through their land. They have a right to shut it and open it and whenever they please. Remember that. This is what angers me so much, is that the Arabs have all the main shipping lanes, every single one. The Strait of Gibraltar, the Suez Canal, Bab el-Mandeb, Hormuz. These are in Arab countries. If the Arabs wanted to, I swear to God, man, nothing in my life would make me happier than if they would put an oil embargo on the West and shut all of these straits and the Suez Canal, even for a day. Even for a day. Do you know what fucking chaos there would be? They would close down the stock. They would be screaming. Biden wouldn't be able to reach the phone fast enough to call up the Israelis and tell them to fucking stop. He wouldn't be able to do it fast enough. This is the way you teach the Americans and the Europeans a lesson. And the Israelis, of course, because they are their backers, right? So this is the only way to do it. And Yemen did it. It's sweet. Oh, it's sweet. I love it. I love it. Arabs have the oil and they have the shipping lanes. They belong to Arabs. It's their decision what to do with them. You don't have a right to pass through if the Arabs don't wish. Okay? So the problem is that our other Arab countries are, they all want the same thing, but they're not, they're not run by people that actually reflect the will of the people. They're run by stooges. What do I mean by that? Well, Bahrain, a lot of these, Gulf kingdoms, they were created by Britain. Like literally, they were drawn on a fucking map by some white person in London, and they became countries. And who did they give the seat of power to? They gave the seats of power to stooges, people that will serve the West instead of serving Arabs. Because if you had real Arab leaders, they would have shut down the Suez Canal. They would have shut down the oil production, 2 months ago, from day one. Actually, not even 2 months ago. They would have done this, years ago, from 1948 already. And they did it once in 73. And the Saudi king didn't live long because of that. So this coalition that he's putting together now, and look, this is Lloyd Austin. He's meeting with the war criminal piece of shit on the right who said that people in Gaza are human animals. If this guy on the left, if Lloyd Austin had any self-respect, he would be arresting this piece of shit and dragging him to the ICC. But anyway, that's only if the Americans only do that to people, who are innocent and put them in Guantanamo. Anyway, listen to this speech now.
No exception.
The pairs say an increase in attacks by Yemen's Houthis in the Red Sea is another concern.
Austin also announcing plans to build an international coalition to address the threat, for which a virtual meeting will be held as early as Tuesday.
These attacks are reckless, dangerous, and they violate international law.
Surely you're talking to the Israeli, no? Surely.
And so we're taking action to build an international coalition to address this threat. And I would remind you that this is not just a U.S. issue. This is an international problem, and it deserves an international response. And we'll have more details on this soon, but we're going to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure freedom of navigation in the area. The straits are pretty important, as you know. A large amount of commerce flows through there. International commerce flows through there on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're right. He's right. It is an issue for you. Yemen targeted several ships. Galaxy Leader, the one they just showed you, was the first one, and they captured it. And so this is just on the 15th, a few days ago. There's a Swiss-owned ship, which was they targeted the Houthis. The Yemenis targeted that. They had a fire on board, and the ship was. So it had a Swiss flag, but it was run by a German insurance company, and MSC company. This is the Swiss one. I've said they're not going to pass no more ships passing through the Red Sea. And there's another ship called Platinum 3, which was struck by Yemen. So this is almost a daily thing. The Yemenis are very smart. They're looking up what ships passing through our shores are owned by an Israeli businessman, or have cargo on board that belongs to an Israeli businessman, or have ties to Israel. Anything that has any relation to Israel is going to be shot at and captured, or suffer great loss to their cargo, and therefore the demurrage fines go up. And this is a disaster. Remember, when we're talking about international commerce, which the bulk of it happens by sea, insurance companies, man, the demurrage fines, the amount of money that goes into securing this cargo is enormous. I mean, it's really incalculable. So when a ship catches fire, this is not a joke. The cargo on board that ship is going to send the insurance company shitting its pants. They just don't want to even begin contemplating covering damages to further ships. So they stop covering ships that go through there. So it's not just Israel that's losing money. It's by having 80% of cargo down at Eilat. It's also the European countries that support Israel that are suffering, and that's why they've put together this coalition. I'll point something out though. This coalition only includes Bahrain. If we look at the surrounding Arabic countries, okay. Again, this is I just went back to this map because I still have it open. The only country that is in this coalition that the U.S. is forming is Bahrain, from the Arab countries. Bahrain is a joke. Look, the people in Bahrain didn't want it to normalize ties with Israel, but they weren't listened to. In any case, it's a tiny country. It doesn't have any pull, and the fact that it's only Bahrain, it shows you that the other countries in the region that are part of the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperation Council, these are the countries that attacked Yemen, and they were also in this coalition backed by the US. So the last time that the Americans formed a coalition to attack Yemen, they lost. And that's just this year. It's only this year that Saudi Arabia made peace with Yemen, and they recognized the Houthi government. And then, this was mediated by China. And then they made peace with Iran, and they made peace with Syria. So it's this year that this happened, that this defeat was really cemented. So that's why these countries are really not looking into or looking forward to jumping into a coalition with the Americans against Yemen for any reason. And that shows you that there's no regional support for this thing because they learned their lesson. It's a joke. It's a joke. But the fact that you have so many Western ships in the region, it shows you that colonialism is still, alive. Israel is the biggest proof of that. But, you know, what is a French ship, for example, a French destroyer, doing in the Red Sea? And shooting down drones or missiles fired by Yemen. None of your business. Fuck off back to France. No, you know, these people, they just insist on coming to the Middle East and screwing with people and oppressing them and, you know, helping the oppressors out. So instead of helping out the oppressed people, the Palestinians or the Yemenis, they work against them. They're the ones that are supplying the bombs to Israel. So, you know, once again, this is a French tradition. The French love collaborating with Nazis, and so they decided to collaborate with today's Nazis, which are the Israelis. Not surprising there. Let me show you. This is and of course, you know, Saudi Arabia helping to shoot down things launched by Yemen is another travesty. I mean, this is an Arabic country, you know, or at least it's supposed to be. It's not controlled by Arabs, it seems. Yeah, so look, the cost of this is from the Americans, right? The cost of using expensive naval missiles, which can run up to $2.1 million a shot, to destroy unsophisticated Houthi drones, which cost a few $1,000s each, is a growing concern, according to the DoD. This is what's so funny. It's because it's like in Ukraine, right? What happened in Ukraine? Russia was buying drones from Iran. And, you know, the mindset in the West is that, well, the more it costs, the fancier it is, which is just consumer capitalism bullshit. On the ground, what wins, what is best, is what gets you results, right? The drones that Russia and Iran were producing, they cost nothing compared to the stuff that Ukraine was receiving. And who won the war? Russia. Now, when you look at the Israelis get all these, you know, subsidies and all this money from the Americans, $14 billion a year. Sorry, it's $3.8 billion, but they gave them another $14 billion this year. You know, like it's not enough, $3.8 billion. And then on top of that, they have nuclear missiles and they have a Navy and they got an Air Force and they have drones and satellite and all these Western countries kissing their backside. And they can't take Gaza. They're losing officers left and right from their elite brigades because they're shit. And they're losing against Hamas, who have nowhere near the same kind of sophisticated equipment. You know why? Because you don't need it. You don't need it when it's your own land. That's the biggest tool you can have. It's the motivation, the drive to keep fighting. Israelis don't have that. It's not their land. They can go back to Ukraine or Italy or wherever any second, right? And they did that on October 7th. You know, they were running to the airport because they got 2 passports. Palestinians don't have that choice, right? That luxury of being able to flee. So this is very funny now because we have Yemen teaching the Israelis, giving them a taste of their own medicine. You want to blockade Gaza? We'll blockade you. And not just you, we're going to blockade all your friends. Screw you. Screw all of you. None of you are coming through here. This is our land. We will fire on you till you learn your goddamn lesson. You want to keep starving Palestinians? You want to deprive them of medicine? You want to kill them? Okay, we're going to make sure you pay for it. And you pay very, very dearly. We're going to teach you a goddamn lesson you will never forget. And what's funny here is that Yemen is doing what Egypt could not. What I was saying before is that Egypt should close the Suez Canal. Why do you want to close the Suez Canal? You want to close it so you can make people go around Africa and waste time and money because the shipping journey is now 2 or 3 times as long, right? That's the point. But Yemen have achieved what Egypt could not. They've basically closed up the Red Sea. That's really what you want, is when you want to get into the Red Sea so you can get to the Arabian Sea and then the Indian Ocean. It's the same thing. It's just it's downstream, so to speak. No pun intended. Okay, it was intended. You know, so instead of doing it here in the Suez Canal, we've got them doing it down here in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Same thing, same result. I'm happy. Same thing. You know? So, you know, President Nasser would be very proud of Yemen. Trust me. You know, it's just a shame. It's a shame that Egypt is held hostage by the Americans. They need aid. They need food. They you know, made them sign some crap with Israel. You know, Jordan as well. A lot of these Arab countries are captured. You need to understand that they are Arab in name. The people there are Arab. You know, they obviously they're definitely Arab countries, but the leaders, they're not Arabs. They're not Arabs. These people are stooges of stooges. So yeah, it pains me to say that. But they are stooges. They are stooges. You know who they are. I'm not saying any, you know who they are. If you're not a stooge, like in Yemen or in Syria, then they come after you. That's the whole thing. But they don't say it like that. They say, "Oh, you don't have democracy and human rights," which is bullshit. The criteria is, do you have ties with Israel? Yes or no? Oh, you do? Then you're a democracy. Hello, welcome to the club. Oh, you don't? Okay, you're a terrorist. We have to get you. Anti-democratic. That's what it means. Okay, so this is really a great achievement. And remember, Yemen is broke. I mean, Yemen until Gaza. Until now, what happened on after October 7th, the last two months, Yemen was the worst humanitarian crisis on earth. It might still be, but I think Gaza will overtake it, unfortunately. And my point here is that Yemen has so many problems, and ironically, because of who? Because of the West. The bombs that are dropped on Yemen come from Germany, come from the United States, Canada, Australia, Britain. They don't come from Timbuktu or from Morocco. They come from the West. Period. These bombs are sent by the West. And they just use their stooges to drop the bombs. Do you understand? So this is the neocolonialism of today. They don't do the things directly all the time. They get their stooges in the region to do it for them, to make to hide it. And Yemen has so many problems. They have poverty. There's a blockade on Yemen. I wrote a giant report on this because, and I did it with a Yemeni economist from Oxford, because what Saudi Arabia was doing is they were taking the ships that come to Yemen, putting them aside, for a year, 6 months, and then in Yemen there's no fuel coming in, and when there's no fuel, the price of everything goes up. You have massive inflation. It's just disaster, really disaster. And this was being done, at the behest of the United States by the Gulf Cooperation Council. So, the Yemen have so many problems they haven't even recovered from, and nevertheless they take the time and they make the effort to stand up for the Palestinians, which really says something, because these Arab countries around them, surrounding Yemen, that are neighboring Yemen, they don't have these problems. They are very rich, they are very wealthy, and they could easily do what Yemen is doing times 10 even, but there's no will to do it from the leadership because they are stooges. This is the sad fact, This is the sad fact, but nevertheless, Yemen showed up when it was, when it was most needed, and that deserves respect and admiration, and really, they are true Arabs, and it's not just Yemen, it's Hezbollah, it's Syria, it's Iran, it's the Iraqi resistance, the PMU, and the Palestinian resistance. All of them working together. They are really the only ones. And it's ironic because many of them are not even state actors. They're just, Hezbollah is a resistance group. Yes, it's also a political party, but it's not the state, right? It's not the Lebanese state itself or in its entirety. When we look at, for example, the Iraqi resistance, yes, it's integrated into the army, but it's not the state. Nevertheless, they're showing up. Let me play this clip from Sky News, and you're going to laugh.
There's also potential for individual nations like the UK to underwrite the shipping. In other words, if we're putting military escorts, we can underwrite the insurance and therefore the ships can get going again. The trouble is, attack is ultimately the best form of defense here, because at the moment, all they're doing is putting an umbrella around the merchant shipping. What you actually want to do is stop the missiles coming in. One of the options is to attack the Houthis. But in the past, what's happened is the Americans have attacked Iran because it's Iran who actually are meddling around with here. Clearly, that risks escalation, but in the circumstances, there's little choice. If you want to get global trade moving again, there's also potential for individual nations like the UK to underwrite.
Hear what this crackhead just said. So he said Iran is meddling. Really? Okay, let's look at the map, bozo. Iran is right there. So Iran, who is there, a neighbor, is meddling, but the UK, that is all the fucking way up here, is not. And America, which is not even on the fucking map on the other side of the planet, is not meddling, but Iran is meddling. Oh, I mean, how dare the Iranians put their country in the way? How rude of them. What kind of fucking analyst is this? You call the guy an analyst? And then he says that the best way is to attack the Houthis. Yeah, that went very well last time. Well done, bozo. Well done, you half-witted half-wit. And then he says that basically they should attack Iran. Wow, this is the best one yet. He can't even. He doesn't even listen to himself. He accuses Iran of meddling. Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second and say that he's right. if Iran is quote unquote meddling, and you can't handle it now, what do you think is going to happen when you attack Iran directly? Clown, absolute clown shit, you know. And then you know, he's like, this is the only way to get international trade going. No, it's not. You can just stop murdering Palestinians. It's actually way cheaper, and also, you know, the normal sane thing to do, you psychotic bastard.
To do is stop the missiles coming in. One of the options is to attack the Houthis, but in the past what's happened is the Americans have attacked Iran because it's Iran who actually are meddling around with here. Clearly that risks escalation, but in the circumstances there's little choice. If you want to get global trade moving again, there's also potential for individual.
You know, he's showing his true colors, you know. If you want to get global trade moving again, you know, it's the capitalism. It just drives this massive, you know, brainstorming session and innovation that you bear witness to before you attack Iran. Yeah, that's it. Let's attack Iran. We need to get global trade moving. This is really like an excellent clip to show people the diseases of capitalism. Like, you know, when you go truly psychotic, like self-destruction mode, you know. So funny, really so funny. One of you in the comments is saying, Richard, have you seen the video on X where a Lebanese Christian actor asked Hezbollah to invoke Holy Mary before launching a rocket at Israel for the Christian children of Gaza, and Hezbollah did it? I did see it, yeah. That was excellent. Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah, didn't I play it to you guys? I can play it in a second. You know, classic projection. One of you said. You know, it's like it's not us that are, you know, blocking global trade because we just want to murder Palestinians in a frenzy and support Israel. No, it's Iran that's meddling. You know, Iran who just put their country in the way. How dare they? How rude! Oh my God! How inconsiderate of them! Just god awful. You know, terrible. So well done to Yemen. They have set back capitalism and you know, Western trade 200 years by making ships go around Africa. Well done. I mean, really, really well done. Mwah. Speaking of capitalism, I want to show you something that is I mean, you know, the Israelis are not wasting time. They are already marketing houses for sale in Gaza, right? I'm not joking. This is legit. This is actually serious, you know? This is an Israeli construction company, Charez Chava, specializing in building settlements in the West Bank, and which of course are illegal. They posted on their social media an ad promoting new settlements on the rubble of Gaza. A house on the beach is not a dream, they say, and they have all these mock-ups, and there are more drawings, right? They have more illustrations. Like when Israelis say they're only in Gaza to get Hamas, which is already a crime in and of itself, they're lying. I told you from the very beginning, and I did those videos about the two analysis videos. I put them together in one part. I told you they're after the land in Gaza. It's not just about settlements. This is peanuts. The money they're going to make from these settlements is peanuts compared to the gas, compared to the Ben Gurion Canal. So, you know, make no mistake, Israel already occupied Gaza in the past, and you know, they have occupied various parts of Syria and you know, Lebanon and Palestine and Egypt. You know, it depends what they feel like during, you know, on that particular day. But Israel, you know, the point is Israel is built on theft. Israel is occupying 3 countries right now, like this second: Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon. And it's been occupying them for decades. You know, that's what Israel is. Israel, Zionism, is theft. It's theft. It's about theft. You can't have Israel without stealing the land. And once again, I'll remind you, the partition plan was forced on the Palestinians. The partition plan said you have to have a Palestinian state. You can't have just an Israeli state and no Palestinians. That's not what the partition plan says. Doesn't matter. Israelis violated. Oslo Accords, Palestinians recognize Israel. They literally signed the fucking document and say, we recognize you. Is there a Palestinian state 30 years later, like it says in the agreement? No. So no matter what you do with the Israelis, you know, you negotiate, you have a sit down, you know, you try diplomacy, armed struggle, it doesn't work. Well, the only thing that works is armed struggle because they hate that the most, and probably because it's effective. That's why they cut the balls off the PLO during Oslo. But when they're going in Gaza, they said it's safe to move down south and you'll be safe there and just get out of the north. And now what's happening? Israel's bombing the south. And they're squeezing people, out of Gaza like a tube of toothpaste. They want to push them into the desert. And there's that leaked document from the Ministry of Intelligence saying, let's just resettle people in Gaza. There's resettle people from Gaza next door in the Sinai desert. Why don't you go settle in the fucking desert since you like it so much? Go back to Ukraine or England or whatever you came from. It's so arrogant. Like, you got Israelis with 2 passports sitting on top of Palestinians and telling them to fucking leave. And then doing this crap, just like openly, making ads. We're going to build settlements on the rubble. This is what it's about. I told you this is what it's about. It's theft, land theft, ethnic cleansing. Look at the Israeli soldiers. They're holding up a flag, and then also, of course, an ad for settlements. And we looked at those videos earlier. I showed you one. I mean, that was a pizza store, which I'm sure the Israeli spokesperson Mark will go and say, well, they were just being creative. Okay, yeah. What about this? This is also creativity. Really? It's a joke. Yeah. This is why Palestinians don't give a shit anymore, because you're basically telling them we're going to erase you, like literally erase your home, erase your family, build on top of you. You don't leave people much choice. They're going to lash out. You back them into a corner, they're going to lash out. Who would not lash out? Can you imagine someone blowing up your house and then putting an ad saying they're going to build a condo on top of your? I mean, you would lose it. Anyone would lose it. It's a normal human reaction to lose your shit when you see this. But, of course, it's the Palestinians who are terrorists, not the Israelis. They would never terrorize anyone. They are completely benevolent in their actions and good, well-intentioned. They would never do something evil like stealing land and murdering people. Jesus. I mean, the West Bank, it's proof that no matter what you do with Israelis, you recognize them, you give them legitimacy, you sign a peace accord, you renounce violence or armed resistance, as it should be called. They will just keep stealing your land. They don't give a shit. Nothing to do with Hamas, everything to do with Israel. Here, more Israeli genius. So the Israelis murdered 3 of their own hostages. Remember that whole thing? They said they want to go into Gaza to rescue the hostages, which has really worked out so well. So there were 3 Israelis. They were taken captive, by Hamas, and they were waving, so they were shirtless, they were waving a white flag, they were yelling in Hebrew, help us, save us, and the Israelis just shot at them. They just killed them. Here's the spokesperson.
אני חושב ששלושת החטופים עשו הכל בכדי שאנחנו נבין. הם נעו ללא חולצות כדי שלא נחשוד במטען לגופם, ואחזו בבד לבן כדי שאנחנו נבין. הירי בחטופים בוצע בניגוד להוראות הפתיחה באש. אסור לירות על מי שמרים דגל לבן ומבקש להיכנע. אך הירי הזה בוצע במהלך לחימה ובתנאי לחץ. אני חושב ששלושת החטופים עשו הכל.
I love it. Even when they kill their own people, they're like, however, I was pretty knackered and under stress, so don't blame me. Look, let's say that these were Palestinians, which is what the Israelis thought. They were ready to murder these people because they thought they're Palestinians. When you see someone who's shirtless, the reason they were shirtless is because the Israelis they just want any excuse to say he's carrying an explosive belt, like as if that's a constant. In any case, these guys literally were half naked and they're waving a white flag and yelling in Hebrew. They shot at 2 of them. They killed 2. The 3rd guy was wounded and kept yelling, and they killed him anyway. What does that tell you? That tells you that the Israelis are out of their fucking minds. They are so incompetent or evil that they are killing anybody and anything that moves. I told you, this is from Israeli media, from Ynet. 1/5, 20% of their own casualties are friendly fire. Now, again, I think that's I don't know if even if you want to say it's an exaggeration, 10% is already nuts. What do you mean 10%? They're saying it's 20. I mean, these figures are astounding. A professional armed force does not cause 10% of friendly fire casualties. Of casualties to be friendly fire. And nevertheless, that's what they're saying. Then you look at this, where they're murdering their own hostages. The whole point of going into Gaza, they claim, is to rescue the hostages. You know, you can't believe them because they behave like this. And that shows you that if they shoot their own people, what do you think they're doing to Palestinians? Just ask yourself this question. If the Israelis shot 3 of their own people and killed them, what do you think they are doing to everybody else in Gaza? This shows you that they are either so scared of Hamas, or their rules of engagement don't exist. There are no rules. It's just, you know, shoot anything that moves. And you saw, you know, during October 7th with this Hannibal directive that their logic back then is that it's better to murder one Arab with an Israeli, you know, than to let the Arab live. That's their mentality. And of course, you know, for them, anybody who resists is a terrorist. So they'll say, well, no, it's not about Arab. It's about being terrorist. Yeah, okay. Hamas this, Hamas that. The point is that they're ready to kill their own people, and they did. And these are Israelis who are giving eyewitness testimony. It's not me. It's not you. It's the Israelis who were there that day testifying that they experienced this. They were shot at by Israeli tanks, by Israeli helicopters. This happened. This is a fact. That damage can only be caused by Israelis. So they murder their own people on October 7th. Then some of them get taken hostage. They kill them in the kibbutz, and then they go into Gaza and they kill more of their own people. What do you think is happening to Palestinians then? Does that give you like a, you know, perhaps an idea, a rough idea of how brutal and indiscriminate the Israelis are in their fire when they're shooting at people in Gaza? And again, this was not with you know, this was on the ground with ground troops. It wasn't by air or something like that. Which again was another excuse the Israelis like using. Oh, we didn't know, you know. I like how he has to remind them in the video where he says that, you know, the shooting at hostages. Yeah, so it is forbidden to shoot at someone who raises a white flag and seeks to surrender. Yeah, what are you telling us for? and if you're repeating that for your troops, why do you have to repeat that? Is that not obvious? I don't know. There's so many things wrong with this, you know, with this incredible, really incredible. So families of the hostages are now losing their minds. I mean, you can't really blame them. And they were protesting outside a military base in Tel Aviv and saying they want an immediate hostage deal. Remember, 60 Israelis were killed in Gaza, separately, right? Separate to this, separate from this, 60 Israelis killed by the bombs. Hamas said that, you know, we tried to keep these people safe, which is logical. Remember, Hamas have no incentive whatsoever and have no history of executing hostages. Why would they do this? The whole point of October 7th was to get hostages so you can swap them for Palestinian hostages. So the last thing that they would ever do is kill the hostages themselves. So you know they're telling the truth. 60 of these Israeli hostages were killed by Israeli bombs. Can you imagine that your own government is bombing you and Hamas are the ones trying to keep you alive? Which, I mean, this says everything. You know, not to mention that we know for a fact that all of them were treated well, and to the point that Israel banned them from giving interviews. So, you know, it's interesting watching the difference in how Hamas treat combatants, prisoners, and then, you know, how Israel does it. Since October 7th, what have you seen? You know, the claim on October 7th is that Hamas, they just murder civilians. Well, I'm sorry. Who has been murdering civilians before October 7th and after October 7th? Israel. Have you heard of anything like that from that day? And we have to ask these questions because on that day, we are now, you know, finding out that the number of Israelis killed by their own government is very high. I want to know what that means. What is very high? Why wouldn't it be morally sound to investigate that? Why is the Israeli army saying that? What are they hiding? I want to know. Because when you have someone that is committing a genocide based on some pretext, you know, we better find out what the fuck happened that day, right? Since they're using it to commit crimes that are 10 million times worse. I mean, it wouldn't justify anyway, but I want to know. Everyone has a right to know. Palestinians have a right to know. Israelis maybe want to know. But you know, the Israelis, the government, they're caught with their pants down. They're caught lying. They killed their own people on October 7th, at least a high number of them. They used that as a pretext to go into Gaza, but they can't win in Gaza. They're even killing their own hostages in Gaza, so that, you know, their excuse falls apart even more. And they can't win militarily. They're being screwed by Yemen, rightfully so. Their international trade is down. And on the battlefield, I mean, you saw the videos, we played them earlier. There's a reason Israel don't publish combat footage. There's nothing to show. Hamas publish it every single day because they are proving through this extraordinary combat journalism, because it really is excellent combat journalism. They're showing that Israel is losing on the battlefield. So Israel don't want to deal diplomatically. They exchanged a few hostages, and remember, that's the only thing that freed hostages. It was diplomacy. It wasn't bombing people in Gaza. They don't want diplomacy. They had 7 days of it, and now it's back to bombing people. They don't want to protect civilians. They don't even care about their own civilians or own people. It's really, I really think Israel have exposed Zionism, to another level. I mean, people have always known what Israel is, but now they have spent 75 years trying to curate this image, build this image of themselves, and it's falling apart very, very, very rapidly. There was already change happening in the last years because of social media, because of footage coming to light, people being educated and so on. But this thing, since October 7th, I mean, the only reason we're talking about that day is because we want to know what happened and what Israel's lying about. But most people are not talking about it anymore because the damage, the murdering that is going on in Gaza, the destruction that is being committed at the hands of Israel is so massive. No one is safe, even their own people, which tells you everything you need to know. And if you had any doubts, or if you had any doubts that Israel, is violent, or you doubted that Israel is targeting civilians, I mean, this incident says it all. They thought these were Palestinian men, and they shot them because they thought they're Palestinians. Even if they were combatants, you can't execute people who are surrendering. It's a war crime. So Israel have no respect for civilians. They have no military discipline. They have no respect for international law. It's just a giant shit show. I can't believe for 1 second that any serious country would not consider, referring them to the ICC. This is impossible. Impossible. There's a concept in law that's called universal jurisdiction, that was, invented or coined by a very famous Spanish lawyer and judge, Baltasar Garzón, and his point was that when someone commits a crime that is so huge, there should be universal jurisdiction to prosecute them, and if ever there was a case for that, it's what's happening in Gaza. This is, I mean, like I said, unprecedented. It's staggering, and don't ever forget that whatever Israel is doing in Gaza, it's there are crimes just like it that it's committing in the West Bank. Don't forget that. Here, let me show you this clip one of you was talking about earlier with the Lebanese Christian actor. And he asked Hezbollah to say a prayer before firing a rocket. Okay, 1 second. Let me find it for you. Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, you guys see that? Okay, let me play it for you.
بتمنى بس to redeem myself أنا لحس حالي إنه مشارك بالمعركة يقول يا مريم العذراء ويطلق ويسدد الرمية كرمال لأجل أطفال غزة المسيحيين الذي لم ينتبه لهم أحدا وكرمال أطفال غزة شو ما كان دينهم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بنداء يا بتول الطهر يا مريم المقدسة.
Yeah, that's you know, when it comes to Christians in Lebanon, there are different kinds. There are some of them who are Israeli collaborators and not very decent people, but he is not one of them. Obviously, most Christians in Lebanon are sane, and they are with the resistance. But you know, this is very good because it gives you an idea where people stand in the region. They regardless of their religion, they support the resistance, because when it comes down to it, you have Israel that is oppressing Arabs, and who is standing up to Israel? Is, you know, anyone around the world standing up to Israel? No. Is there a court standing up to Israel? No. Is there, you know, are there any diplomatic channels being used to, you know, leverage positions against Israel? No. The only people that are standing up to Israel on everyone's behalf in the region, it's the resistance. It's Hezbollah, it's Hamas, it's you know, PMU and so on. So that's why it's important. And remember, actually, also in Islam itself, I mean, as far as I understand, Mary is you know, very important in Islam, and as is Jesus. Jesus is a prophet in Islam. So, you know, it's worth repeating that, because I think people in the West, and especially now when it's Christmas, you know, they just don't understand how important religion is in the region, and they don't understand how you know, Muslims and Christians live together without problems, because that's not the case in the West. In the West, you have a majority of people who call themselves Christians who discriminate against Arabs and especially Muslims. That's not the case when it comes to the Middle East. It's harmony. So, you know, anyway, let me say, with Hezbollah, they attacked a funeral. The Israelis bombed a funeral procession just 2 days ago, and in response, Hezbollah hit them back. And remember, this is another front in the war, just like Yemen is another front in the war. You know, Hezbollah are the only ones that took out the Israelis from South Lebanon, that kicked them out. It wasn't anybody else. Like I was saying, some people even collaborated with the Israelis, and you know, like the Kataib. So, and they, you know, there were massacres committed against Palestinians there, and you know, yeah. But so you know, in the West, they want to paint Hamas as terrorists, Hezbollah as terrorists, but without these organizations, because remember, they are political parties, and they also have armed resistance wings. Without them, there would be even more occupation, and things would be even worse, and no one would be standing up for people in the Middle East. This is a fact. It's a fact. So, thank you again, all of you, for nice comments. I'm reading, and thank you very much. And Black Flag says the thieving settlers are hiding in hotels. Yeah, they are. They evacuated a lot of Israeli settlers on the front with Lebanon because they're afraid of Hezbollah, and they are holed up in hotels, right? And you know, they claim they're oppressed in the hotels. Yeah, well, they should see what it's like being kicked out of your home by the IDF and sleeping outside in the rain. Israelis are always oppressed, even when they're oppressing others. They're the ultimate victims. You know, everything revolves around them. They're the chosen people, yada, yada, yada. Thank you, John, for the kind donation. I appreciate it. And thank you also to Amber for the donation. Once again, I don't want to nag you guys, but if you can spare a few bucks, please throw them my way because YouTube demonetized my channel. You know, I can't stream on YouTube anymore because if I say anything, they'll delete it. And like I said, they deleted a lot of my coverage from this war, which makes me angry. This comes down to stopping people from being educated. They'll cook up whatever the reasons they want, but at the end of the day, you know, Israelis can say, let's raze Gaza to the ground. Let's exterminate Palestinians. They're human animals. Like, that's the most racist, genocidal shit you've ever heard. And nothing, no reaction, no consequences, no deplatforming, nothing. They can literally murder people and get away with it. But, you know, if you open your mouth and just report the truth, just report what's happening, oh, this is sanctioned. Crazy Puppet, thank you very much. It says, Richard, you're awesome having ability to be an observer, but not stopping at that. Becoming a window for all of us to see it as well. Do hope that global players will at least stop the massacre. Well, thank you, Crazy Puppet, for the kind words. And yeah, you know, this is the problem with the global leaders is that Russia and China know that if they do anything, you know, like, China is already fighting a Cold War with the Americans, and Russia is already fighting NATO through Ukraine. So they are trying to deal with their own crap. And if they do anything to help the resistance, they will get drawn in, and it will become an even bigger issue. There's no need for them to do anything right now because if you look at the results on the battlefield, Israel is losing. They haven't achieved a single military objective. I don't care what anyone says. When you have the Israelis coming on TV and saying we will destroy Hamas and they don't destroy Hamas, then they have failed, right? They have failed. They have not achieved their objective. And when there's combat footage coming out every day of Israelis, you know, Hamas wiping the floor with them, then they are losing on the battlefield. So, you know, the thing is that, you know, China just signed a strategic partnership with Syria not long ago. And, you know, if we look at what's happened in Ukraine, if you look at what's happened in Gaza, and the Americans still want to go after Taiwan, I mean, I really don't know what to say. This is it's not stupidity, it's something else. It's greed on another level. And they're done with Ukraine, by the way. They have thrown Ukraine to the wolves. Ukraine is like, it's an afterthought. It's not even on anyone's mind anymore. They're just completely done with it, you know? They've lost, and it doesn't matter because they made their money. All these companies that were giving Ukraine weapons, they weren't giving them for free. People paid for that, right? Taxpayers paid for that, and all that money. You have to understand this military aid never left the U.S. or Europe. It basically changed hands from the government to the arms industry. Stayed in the country, made people rich, and now, you know, they dumped Ukraine. They're done with it. On to the next one. And they're right now, you know, don't forget, I know this goes without saying to you guys, but right now in Gaza, there's a lot of money being made by the arms manufacturers. When they give Israel 14 billion, they're not giving Israel 14 billion. The American government is taking 14 billion and giving it to the arms industry, which then gives Israel weapons. And again, it's another money-making scheme. So that is just one aspect of it. The money they will make afterwards with the gas and all these things that I talked about in the videos is astronomical. But they're not going to get away with it. And again, for those of you who haven't watched the videos, I will spam you till the cows come home with this because you need to go watch it. Look, here's the video. This is part 1. Okay. Okay, this is part 1, and here's part 2. And you need to go watch these videos because you will understand what's happening in Gaza. And the economic incentives behind it. This is video number 1, okay? It went viral. I mean, not just on Twitter, literally everywhere. So you really have to watch it and understand. This is part 1 and this is part 2. So I talk about the gas, the canals, all of it. And I'm pasting the links in here in the chat so you can see them. And if you want to read them as an article, I got them published also in El Meadin. Okay, so you'll find them here as well. Yeah, so there's part 1 and part 2. Okay, I'll paste the links here as if you want to read them as articles. So there you go. And by the way, I have some news. So this is about Julian Assange, okay? So Julian Assange will have his next court date February 20th and February 21st, 2024. This will be at the High Court in London. I'll be covering it as usual. So, yeah, this is basically his last chance to block extradition to the US. So I know some of you subscribed. You know, it's been a while since there was anything happening in his case. So maybe some of you who subscribed or followed me recently don't know this, but I was covering his case in London, and they're trying to snatch him. The Americans are trying to snatch him from the UK and put him in prison for like 175 years. That's not a joke. And he's already in prison right now. And the only crime he's committed is publishing, you know, evidence of war crimes. So you for sure you know what I'm talking about. The you know, collateral murder video, the Iraq war logs, Afghan war diary. It's all stuff that the U.S. has done in you know, Guantanamo Bay, State Department cables. It's so much evidence of U.S. war crimes, and it's not George Bush going to prison. It's not Tony Blair. It's him. So, you know, this is an attack on journalists, and it's an attack on one of the most famous journalists, and it's the United States trying to export its laws, you know, extraterritorialize its laws in Europe, in the UK. So, you know, this is a guy who's never been, I think he went to the US once on holiday or something, but he's not from the US. He never worked in the US, didn't publish anything in the US, and they still want to jail him there. So, you know, there's so many aspects of how ridiculous this is. And I've covered his case from the beginning. So if you want, go watch the playlists. There's the first extradition hearing, which lasted about 3 weeks. I did every single day. I did a recap on YouTube. And then there was the appeal at the High Court. And then there was, you know, there was basically, he tried to move it to the Supreme Court afterwards. They kicked it back down. Now, you know, it's the whole objective is to have him running through, you know, jumping from court to court, and driving crazy like that, you know. So he's in a maximum security prison, a journalist in a maximum security prison where they put people from Al Qaeda. That's the punishment. That's the punishment for you know, airing the United States dirty laundry. So please go watch the videos, and like I said, I'll be covering the court case and the court proceedings February 20th, February 21st. So mark those dates because they're very important. This is another case where they want people, you know, not to notice what's going on and bury it. And mainstream media don't cover it because they're cowards. So yeah, even though they used his reporting and you know, profited that way, but. Again, thank you guys very much for the kind words and the donations, and I appreciate it very much. Please remember to share the videos, spread the word, educate people, try and change their minds. The West is really heavily indoctrinated, so we have to change people's minds. Also, you know, if you're British or you're American, you have to understand that whatever Israel does, people associate that with us. So they look at us and say you are responsible. And in a way, they're right, because, you know, we allow the government in Westminster and you know, DC to just support Israel with no consequences. So this is why it's important to make them feel and suffer consequences. You know, people don't want to support Israel. Most people don't care about Israel. Israel shouldn't be supported. It should be tried and, you know, punished. So it's not about changing the level of government support. It's about destroying it and annulling it completely, period. You know, the people who want to support Israel are a minority. They can fuck off. You know, these rich assholes that run the government, they don't represent anyone, you know? So, you know, with their Christian Zionist nonsense, whatever that is. I mean, it's like, you know, I don't even know what that means, Christian Zionism. It's like such a contradiction of terms, you know? You remember that part in the Bible where Jesus said you should murder Palestinians? See, it doesn't exist. Anyway, my point is that it's not fair. It's not fair to point the finger at us, but that's how people feel, and they have a right to feel that way because, like I said, without British and American support, Israel would not function. It would not exist. So it is incumbent upon us to to enact change, whether that's a reduction or preferably the total destruction and of any support for Israel. Zionism doesn't have a right to exist. It's a political ideology. It doesn't have a right to exist. Israel can go exist somewhere else where it doesn't murder people. Sure, I'll support that. Go away. If Israel wants to exist where nobody lives and they don't bother anyone, sure, yeah, okay, whatever. But they're not going to exist in Palestine, in Syria, in Lebanon, occupying 3 countries, murdering people, stealing resources. Enough of this shit. No. So we're not, we should not allow them to do that in our name. Remember that. Okay, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you haven't made an account yet, please subscribe. Make an account on Rumble and subscribe. And thank you very much. Take care. Masalam. Bye-bye. You cannot blame the Palestinians for, wanting to free their land. This is very basic, common principle of any human rights charter. It's in the United Nations Charter. It's in the Geneva Convention that if you are occupied, you can fight to liberate your country in any way you like. The UN General Assembly even underscored this and said this includes armed struggle. That means with weapons. No one wanted it to get to this situation. It's the Israelis who came and used weapons. When they did the Nakba in 1948, they wiped out entire villages. They wiped them out. This is very, very clear. This is ethnic cleansing. It's genocide. No one wanted it to get to this stage. It's the Israelis who've allowed it to get to this stage. There's nothing wrong with dismantling colonies. No one cries because the British Empire had to collapse.
We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. We are fighting against human animals and we are acting accordingly.
Human animals. I mean, if I had given you the exact quote that he just said of what he just said, you would think this is a Nazi talking about Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. Human animals. That's what he called everybody in the Gaza Strip. What the Israelis have done before is that they calculated how much food people in Gaza need to eat to survive, right? Like what is the bare amount of calories? The Israelis did this for the purpose of looking at how much food they can give the Gazans, as little as possible, just to make sure that they stay alive. And then they actually gave them less than that. And the only other example that I know of this in recent history is Nazi Germany. Okay, the food minister, the Nazi food minister, was called Backe. That's his name. He did something called the Hunger Plan. You can take a guess. You can guess already what it was. When they took all these Soviet prisoners of war, which they considered to be subhuman in Nazi Germany, Backe calculated how many calories they would need in order to starve the Soviet prisoners down to something ridiculous, like 50 or 60 calories a day. They gave the Soviets as little as possible, and guess what? A lot of them died because of hunger. Millions. And they gave the food to the Nazi soldiers. Right? So this is a perfect analogy to what is happening in Gaza. So now, instead of giving them too little calories to survive, they're giving them no calories to survive, right? So it's gone from out of the frying pan into the fire. Hamas know that this is going to happen. There's always something that the Israelis do to crap on everybody. So when you are in a situation like this, you have nothing to lose. You literally have nothing to lose. So why not just go all out? Why not go all out? Again, the Israelis want you to think, oh, they're victims. Oh, Hamas are terrorists. No, man. You're starving 2 million people. You've surpassed terrorists. You become genocidal at this point. Let's call him General Genocide. Right? That's his rank. They need to plunder Niger. You got hundreds of trucks lining up at the border. They can't get in the country because of the situation that ECOWAS has created, and of course at the behest of France and the United States. These sanctions are biting hard and they're illegal. They have no moral or legal basis whatsoever.
Niger is the poorest country on earth, and they bite it and smite it with these sanctions. How can you be so evil to do such a thing like that? People have had enough. When you have been subjugated and forced into poverty like this, you have no option but to give a middle finger and say goodbye, get out of my country, go now. I'm happy that I'm alive to see this. This is real decolonization. This is it. This is the real thing. The real thing. If it weren't real, they wouldn't be so upset in Paris. Now, would they? Would they? I rest my case. Let me just ask you something right now before I continue. And I want you to comment right now whether you're watching live or you're watching on replay. Especially Americans. Have you ever heard of Agadez or Airbase 201? Do you know what that is? Please tell me right now in the comments. Guess what? You should have heard of it. You should know it because you paid for it. This base cost over $100 million. It's one of those massive sinkholes that you have, in the Pentagon. Yeah, you guys know that the Pentagon have been audited, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. But the point here is that every single time that they've been audited, trillions of dollars are unaccounted for. The truth is that Airbase 201 in Niger is the largest American drone base, not in Niger, not in Africa, in the world. That's pretty unique. That sticks out, right? There's something special about this, especially when you paid for it. Hamas are doing exceptionally well, even though they have less resources and they're constantly targeted, right? That is something which really shows you how sanctions have failed, how isolation has failed, how this strategy of trying to make sure that Gaza is besieged, Syria is besieged and isolated, sanctioned, cordoned off from the rest of the world. Iran is also sanctioned and isolated. Russia's isolated. It doesn't work. As a matter of fact, it's funny because they end up shooting themselves in the foot. They just shoot themselves in the foot. I take it the Israelis will insist on overstaying their non-existent welcome a tad bit more, but nevertheless, there is no question about it. What happened today makes the 2006 war with Lebanon, where Lebanon and specifically Hezbollah humiliated Israel, look like a joke. That's how bad today is, right? Like, that's how humiliating it is for Israel. The Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation, literally a standing ovation for a Nazi. Not a neo-Nazi, no, a Ukrainian Nazi. He's like, oh, wait till they find out.
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you. No, the hell you don't. These are photos of him.
A is for
all men and women created by you know the thing.
B is for
I'm beginning to see why your wife left you.
C is for
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
D is for
Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them.
E is for
Excuse to walk by the dealer and say, no, I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom, boom, boom.
F is for
Time friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life.
G is for
Go to Joe 30330.
H is for
Hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down.
I is for
I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
J is for
Just look at the record.
I have President Biden, Vice President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, if you look at my record and you still doubt about my commitment, then you should vote for somebody else.
K is for
Kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
L is for
The lion, dog, face, pony soldier.
M is for
Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone, make sure the kids hear work.
N is for
NATO.
O is for
The only African American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate.
P is for
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
R is for
Rest her soul, and although she's your mom's still alive.
S is for
Send a text to the word united.
T is for
Truth over facts.
U is for
Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future.
V is for
Vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much.
W is for
Wait, you're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay.
X is for
Xi Jinping.
Y is for
And you ain't black.
Z is for
She's sleeping?
Women in our country has been classified as essential. So this is an issue.